everybody. Hopefully you caught my quick, poorly tech-riddled episode with Senator Briggs. It was interesting. It was fun to have a chance to talk to him. I hope this is the beginning of a continual stream of conversations with the man. I think there is some interesting stuff that we could be learning from talking to him more often. Maybe I can get him and Becky in the room and we can just do a Knox County state government senatorial delegation right here in studio and have a good time. Anyway, we're almost agreement at gmail.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter and YouTube. We're on the favorite podcast provider. While you're at those places, like, friend, share, 5-star review, tell everybody about us, text us to people, do whatever you can do to spread the word. We're going to keep trying to figure stuff out and talk about it and see if we can't find some modern solutions to today's problems. So a couple of big stories I'm sure we'll touch on among the 10,000 other things that happened this week. So stay tuned. We're going to do this thing. All right. Here we go, probably. How about day?
Hey.
How you do?
I be.
What's new in the world is...
Oh, not a lot.
All right. See, we screwed it up last week, and then the week before, I don't even know that we did it. Try to get back to the normal things. It's only taken 8 weeks or so now to roll into 2025 like I know what I'm doing. So starting with the top story of the week, Apple phones are automatically calling Trump a racist. Apparently there's some sort of glitch that when you talk to text and you say Trump, it thinks racist. So maybe Apple's smarter than we think they are. I don't know. I don't know. I'd argue that Trump's not really racist. I think he's an indifferent douche canoe that will take advantage of anybody, regardless of color. So that's my take. But apparently, this according to the AP, the Apple says the speech recognition models that power the voice-to-text feature might show words with some phonetic overlap. I don't know that I can think of any phonetic overlaps. I'm not good at phonics per se. Obviously, you guys have listened to me for a while. But the phonetic overlap being that it said that other words that have an R consonant were also erroneously triggering said bug. So if you talked to text and said Richard, it might call Richard a racist too, is what they're alleging with it. So anyway, they're aware of it. They're fixing it. So Apple phones aren't going to automatically call Trump racist anymore.
Fun.
I mean, it's a feature, not a bug. So Gene Hackman, have you heard that story?
I did, yeah.
Like, have you heard anything other than he died?
I saw the sheriff's department did a press release today, but I think the last I saw was unknown, but it was like a maintenance worker that came in that found him, but they've been dead for at least a couple days. I'm not sure exactly the timeline.
The they part is what I got confused at, because like I'd seen the headline.
His wife and
he's 93. He died. There's some pictures of him recently. He barely looks like himself. 93. It's good up. He's getting up there. Whatever.
I was 95. But I don't know.
Whatever. 90 plus.
Right.
But that, I didn't hear about the wife and the dog part until tonight. I was actually caught a couple minutes of nightly news.
Yeah, I think they said there was no signs of I guess one of their initial thoughts was maybe carbon monoxide, but
right. But like the wife was found in the bathroom with a bunch of pills.
No, I didn't hear that.
All over the like the pills were kind of spread out around the bathroom. The dog was found in a different part of the house, and Gene was found in the bedroom, I think is what they said.
I'm not sure.
But they said that they pulled the data off his pacemaker and said that, I know it's nothing's funny about any parts of this except like just little things tweak my humor. The sheriff, whoever the spokesperson for the sheriff's office that was talking to doing the press conference, he said, we investigated the pacemaker. And I thought that meant, they had a tech looking at it to make sure it was working correctly or something like that.
Right.
No, they actually went and pulled the data out. So the last event recorded on the pacemaker was on the 17th.
Wow.
So, it seems like the pacemaker stopped recording. I don't know exactly how pacemakers work, but I'm assuming they say, oh, hey, you're not beating. And they try it a couple times, and if it continues to not kick in, they probably just stop because there's not enough power in it to keep running. I think it's something like that.
I'm sure by now there's lots of different and newer versions of.
So
I would think some of the newer ones have, maybe what they're talking about, where you can, pull data up or have that data,
Yeah, I'm sure the cardiologists
constantly monitored.
Right. I'm sure the cardiologists love having data to be able to pull out there. It's really handy in helping adjust and make things better for the patient. I think it's probably a very good feature for the program. I'm not trying to.
Right. Oh, no.
I just thought the word investigate was a funny word to use for. We pulled the data out of the pacemaker.
Yeah, I guess it's almost kind of like a black box where you can a black box for the heart, basically, where you can. Look at hey, was there an anomaly? Hours leading up, etc.
Right, and so, but again, the weird part, like the weird part to me, it's like that. So the whole house died in one. It seems like one incident.
Yeah,
but there doesn't seem to be anything obvious. It wasn't like somebody came in and killed everybody, at least not directly. In the early stages of the autopsy, they didn't see the carbon monoxide poisoning. I don't know. Very, very non-informed take is. I don't know how the dog died, at least, but it almost feels like maybe he died just because he's old, because she's only 60-something. His wife. I didn't
realize he was married.
Yeah, 90. He's 95, 95 or whatever, but she was like 65.
Yeah.
And so maybe when he died, she decided to take her own life. Is what it kind of. That's my very uninformed guess at what happened.
It's possible.
Still don't know how the dog died.
Right.
Maybe the dog starved to death because it was trapped in the house for 8 days, with his owners having passed in the other parts of the house. I think a dog would last longer than that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think they might be able to live longer than that.
But they do say...
scrounge around or something.
Like a dog will starve to death before it'll eat its master, though. A cat will start eating you about 20 minutes after you die.
Really?
Yeah, that's like fact.
I thought I heard of dogs that did that to their owners, but I'm not sure.
I'm sure there's examples.
Probably depend on the level of love that.
Right. I'm sure there are examples of dogs eating their masters sooner, but there's many recorded examples of dogs starving to death before they will eat their master.
Yeah.
Which is why dogs are better than cats. I know you're a cat guy. I'm just poking jokes here.
I know. I mean, I know you're wrong, but that's fine.
That's what a cat person thing to say. You're like Taylor Swift and your childless cat ladies. That was on Jeopardy tonight, actually. The clue. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what the question was, but that was the answer. And I was like, something like single cat ladies. No. Unmarried cat ladies. No. Childless cat ladies.
All the single ladies? No, that's not
none of the Jeopardy contestants knew the answer, so I'm smarter than those motherfuckers. And it's a tournament week we're in the middle of right now.
Where did I see a crazy one the other day? I think it was like a science-related one that I would have thought was like a common... I think I saw it on like Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson, where I guess the guest he had on, like that guest was one of the answers. But like all three of the people like didn't know who this person was. Oh. And it was kind of like, that's really sad that like everyone forgot that I did that.
So I was talking to Briggs and we were getting set up. I'm very unhappy with the quality of that interview, not by content of creation by me or anything I said or didn't say, but we had a very bad connection. So it's going to be hard to listen to, but I can't
think you could have punched it up a little bit. No.
Nah, I mean, I could, but I couldn't. But also, like, and I tell all the politicos as I don't know, maybe as a disarming tactic. It's like, listen, if I do an interview, I don't do anything to it. I may take clips and use it elsewhere, but the entire conversation will be released. So, like, as soon as we say go until we say goodbye, we're on the record. But you don't have to worry about me just taking like 2 sentences out that make you sound bad and using that. Because if I do, I can, and I might. But if I do, you can say on his channel, he has the entire interview. So if you want to argue context, the whole thing's there. So
that's fair.
And that's always been my stance on him. I've never done any. I've had a few like where like we've lost connection or something like that, and I had to get it reconnected, and I didn't want a phone number or something like that getting out. I had to go back to City County today. That's why I got that receipt.
Oh, was that a parking thing?
Yeah. And because the apps rolled in since we went. I don't have the app for the meters. All the meters are changing over to the new app system. Sorry, that's non sequitur, people. So anyway, it's hard to listen to for tech reasons. I will take the blame. I don't know if it's my internet or his internet, but the internet connection was bad on our Zoom call. So it's just a tough one to listen to. And it was a tough one to talk. It was a tough one to have a conversation on because like I would ask a question and he would start an answer. I'm like, okay, I want to refute that part, but let him finish. And then it gets all broken up. And then by the time we get reconnected, I was like, hey, I lost you for a second. Can you go back to about here? Then we go back to about there. Right. And then he'd finish his thought. And by that point, I'd forgotten a refute or a question or a follow-up. For what it's worth, my takeaway from talking to him is my initial assumption that he just doesn't like that he's of the generation, because he is 73. He's of the generation that is full on reefer madness. I don't know that that's the take. He seems open to the premise. I think I get the feeling out of him is that for what's available on the market, he's just strictly, he wants Tennessee to be in line with federal law. And so it's not that, which I was kind of like, but we don't have to be, because we have Colorado's and stuff. It's like, yeah, but it's still federally illegal for them to do that. And it's like, well, yeah, but who cares if they're not enforcing it, and it's a good thing for the industry and taxes and all the different stuff that's going on. What's the, so his whole take on what's available is trying to get Tennessee law in line with federal law.
Right.
And then the other half of it being the tying into the ABC and all that kind of crap, that's just bureaucratic bullshit. And I have I have a million complaints about it, but of what matters, that's kind of irrelevant. Because, I mean, if we lose A&P, which is likely at this point, where I get what little I can still get is kind of irrelevant. The problem I have, I guess the concern I have with that, like the philosophical concern I have with that part of it, it's like, well, but then I'm also limited to what I can get by what distributors in the state bother getting.
That's true.
And I don't have the wherewithal. I don't have even if I did have the gravity to go to a distributor and be like, hey, you need to pick this product up so I can carry it in Tennessee. Even if they do, any sort of market advantage I have by carrying that product, everybody else has too.
That's true, but I think the market has adjusted in the past and kind of found their own little loopholes.
Sure, and we'll get there, and presumably the distributors will add more to their portfolios.
Because those distributors don't want to lose money.
Yeah, but this is just extra money. It's not losing.
They can't sell what they've normally been producing.
Oh, they can all. Everybody that's doing it is going to continue to do it. Oh, you're talking about which one are you talking about? Distributors is who I was talking about.
All right. Well, I guess manufacturers and distributors within the state. I guess maybe some of the manufacturers are out of state.
Oh yeah, a lot of them are.
Yeah.
A lot of the good ones are, at least that we like. And they have to. It'll be the question of whether we can get them lined up with a distributor.
Right. But I think those distributors in general, because I don't think we're the only state that's kind of having this kind of mix of legislative issues. But I think they may find a way around it.
We'll see. I mean, one of the things that this one does do, which is hard to do, is it does ban direct-to-consumer shipping, which I am selfishly in favor of.
Right.
Sort of. I've looked into DoorDash and stuff like that. I'd like to do DoorDash, but DoorDash won't do it. But that's a banking thing with hemp.
Right.
Why DoorDash won't do it, but now it makes it explicitly illegal. So there are a number of companies who that's all they do. They don't do retail. They don't have a brick and mortar retail. All they do is, some of them are like Pizza Hut direct delivery, where it's like the Pizza Huts. Remember the Pizza Huts that didn't have a dining room back in the day? That it was a delivery only Pizza Hut, or a carry out delivery only Pizza Hut.
I think I may have remember seeing some of this.
Well, essentially, there's some companies that they are a delivery only. They're not shipping. They're not packing and shipping to it. They just have drivers that drive around town and deliver stuff.
Right.
But they don't. They might have a central warehouse somewhere, but they don't have a building where you and I could go buy stuff. It's just so that comes out of viability. Shipping into the state technically becomes illegal, but can't really be illegal. It's a weirdism because interstate commerce you can't. If I can order it from a company in Kentucky, they can still ship it to me. The thing that the state will have to do is ban access to those websites that are out-of-state sellers, like they've done with porn, which is a much harder hill to climb. And I didn't actually get to talk to him about that part because, again, technical issues.
Yeah. I was trying to say, I don't think distributors would want to lose out on this market because, you're not the only business in Tennessee that's making money on this. And, converse or accordingly, those distributors don't want to lose the entire state as a market.
Right, but the way this is written for distributors in the first place. Actually, the Tennessee State Alcohol Distributors Alliance was part of writing the bill.
I'm sure some distributors will be happy to sell something, but I think they know by sales numbers what has been selling. and what is profitable to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they'll do, there's a couple of companies that have leaned into it already, and they're going to do very well because they're ahead of the curve. And then the question is, do the other players add this to their portfolio, or they're like, we're making plenty of money selling liquor and beer. Why would we add a headache for a small margin?
It's true.
And so I could see it going that way too, where they're just like, meh. And so the handful of companies that are into it, which there are a couple, they might be the only distributors really in the state, which, again, from a customer perspective or from a retailer and or customer perspective, that makes that is really hard on competition. One, there is no clear guidance on whether they're allowed to do discounts or no discounts. Like there's law in liquor sales, and this is going to ABC. So one of the fairness things that state law wrote into alcohol sales is if you're a giant liquor store or a tiny liquor store, you pay the same for a bottle of Jack.
Right.
D&B is not allowed to charge differently, not allowed to offer discounts or specials or whatever. There's only one special in liquor, and it's technically buy 12 cases, get a free case, but everybody does it as buy a case, get a free bottle because it's a 12-pack case. It's the same math. And so every distributor has that special because that's the only special they're really allowed to do. Beer doesn't do anything, but the beer has the same rules. If you want to buy a case of Samuel Adams Boston Lager, Cherokee has to sell it to me for the same price they sell it to Hooters for. They can't give Hooters a discount because Hooters has 20 times the volume as me.
Right.
And so the question is, are they going to do that with hemp products too? Because it sounds good for the retailer, because I'm not a big retailer and I'm not going to be able to compete with some of the bigger retailers if they're getting discounts that I'm not getting. But at the same time, we're all getting the same thing for the same price. So how do I differentiate myself from other stores on in the market? I sell it for cheaper.
Well, yeah, by having a different profit margin.
I take a smaller margin, sell it cheaper, which that's advantage to companies that have to retailers that have a wider portfolio.
Right.
Being a gas station or grocery store or a liquor store, who it's not their core product,
right? Because
they can afford to sell it for only a 10% markup, where if that's all you do and that's your specialty, you've got to have a bigger markup because you have to cover all your bills with it, not just some of them like a liquor store does. So it's not an advantage. It's an advantage to the larger retailers, not the smaller retailers. But then the other part too is selection. One of the ways that you can differentiate yourself in the current market is by what items you carry. And a way to be what quote unquote, what I would argue is a better store is to have a better selection. Better selection not meaning more things to choose from, but the things that you have to choose from are the best options available for them. That's how I like to see us. Maybe it's my rose-colored glasses image of myself, is that I always kind of tell everybody, like, we have a curated selection. You can go to some of these shops and they have everything under the sun. You come to my shop, you're going to have the top 2 or 3 versions of everything under the sun, because I don't care about the rest of it.
Right. It just kind of depends on your clientele. You're going to have I'd say a decent mixture of both. Of some people that are like, hey, what's good? And then, hey,
what's cheap?
Right.
What do I get out of here quickly? But again, from a competitive standpoint and from a consumer standpoint, it's not good for you. The only good side, quote unquote, that is theoretically written into this is that since it's going through the distributors now have to carry the burden to make sure the lab work and the testing has been done on the product before they put it into their trucks to ship it to you. And a tax goes in there. There's a 1 cent per milligram tax that sneaks in there too.
Well, I mean, if the quote unquote price control, I guess works as it's designed, I could see it kind of helping retailer and consumer.
I see it exactly opposite. It doesn't do it. I don't see it being any good for either player. So if you've done better and you have more power, and you have more buying power.
Well, I mean, how do you think the price controls on beer and liquor have done? I mean, I'm assuming we've had price controls on what you can sell beer for to retailers for at least 15, 20 years.
It's been a long time.
Has it stifled?
I think it did for a while. I don't know. I know that's I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think there were until.
I know, like liquor stores, you have the you can only have so many liquor stores or liquor licenses basically in an area. But
that's the other part too, is that to sell hemp you have to have a liquor license now.
Right, but I mean when the craft beer craze, I mean there was fucking little beer shops popping up everywhere.
Sure. How many beer only places are left?
I mean, we've kind of gone away from the beer craft craze.
But I think that there's a chicken there's a chicken to the egg there too, though, because I think especially the big players in the beer distributors game. There's the two big players, Cherokee and Eagle. They were very slow to pick up any of this craft beer revolution. It was the smaller players that was their competitive advantage by going out and finding these smaller breweries that were starting to pop up because it was getting popular to do smaller breweries.
Right.
And so it took a few years, but then Eagle and Cherokee started to react, and now they've built their portfolios up in that subset.
Right.
To the point where it's too much. Like it's a too much selection from a retailer's perspective. There are too many beers available in the Knoxville market to really shake a stick at.
Right.
But that being said,
there's always going to be a reactionary kind of thing to it.
But that being said, there are beers that aren't in the Tennessee or in the East Tennessee market that people ask for.
Right.
And that's because, your favorite beer is not available in Tennessee, or at least the specific flavor that you like. Your Great Lakes Porter?
Right. I don't think they have any distribution rights in Tennessee.
Right. Because
that brewery.
Right, because they don't have distribution rights in the state of Tennessee. Now,
right. Partly because there isn't a market here for it. I'm assuming because that brewery has never tried to market, or they did it. They did a test market.
Right.
Well, it's their, yeah.
I'm just saying. I don't
think it's but this distribution thing this having price controls on it has somehow kept out that. I mean, it's just a business that tested out an area.
It's absolutely kept it out, but whether it's by choice or not. Okay, so in the current, this is a good comparison to have the conversation on. In the current hemp side of the market, if I wanted to carry Great Lakes hemp products, and I reached out to Great Lakes and said, "Hey, will you ship me some of this so I can sell it to my customers?" They don't need to go to a distributor in the state and do all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be a statewide option for everybody. It's only an option for those of us that went out and sought it out. And and then it's a choice by that brewery if they want to bother with wholesaling it to me or not. You know what I'm saying? That's how the current market is in hemp, is that I find a company that I think makes great stuff, and maybe they're not big enough to distribute
some things. But I mean, I think we both ran into times where we tried to get a product and they're like, no, you need to go through this person. We don't sell direct to retailers.
Okay, that's not. But they have a wholesaler that I can get it from that isn't obliged to be registered in the state of Tennessee. I have a number of retailer or distributors that I get stuff from California, and you're correct that they are the official wholesaler for a brand that I want. But they're not in Tennessee.
All right.
So so that's a good example. So whatever brand we're thinking of right now, I don't remember which one it is, but I know what you're talking about. They only distribute through X distributor in California. Well, this Tennessee law comes through, and I can't order from them directly. I have to talk them into now wholesaling it to somebody in Tennessee so that I can then wholesale it from that person. Even though there's a perfectly capable wholesaler, just they're not a Tennessee wholesaler. And what incentive
this new law would require?
Right. What incentive do they have to either come to Tennessee and set up their own distribution center, or give up margin to get it into another distributor's hand? It's maybe that's a better way. That maybe for competitive conversation, this is forcing at least one middleman into the conversation that I don't think is necessary. The state does, because that's how the state controls it and watches it and makes sure that everybody pays their taxes. Is because there's only like 10 companies in the state of Tennessee that distribute alcohol. It's really easy to keep track of 10 companies. Right. It's really hard to keep track of 10,000 companies. And that again rolls back to, I guess this was a given from the get-go. It's to make sure the taxes get paid correctly. But again, regardless of that part of it, it's a competitive. I do not think it is a net positive for the consumer. I don't think it's a net positive for the retailers. I think it's a net positive for the distributors who choose to push into that route. And I think it's a massive negative for producers. So and again, going back to, there's only about 10 players that are going to be able to legally distribute in the state. So there's 10 companies that are going to benefit, that have the potential to benefit from this. Everybody else in the equation, I think, loses. It's going to be more expensive for you to buy it at the store. It's going to be the same price as everybody else, so it's going to be hard for me to play pricing games or do any sort of discounting in my location. So your price is going to be more. Plus, this middleman's going to take their cut, so the price is going to be more. Plus, there's a new tax on it, so the price is going to be more. That distributor is going to make more money. The wholesale or the producer is going to make less money. I don't see how it could work any other way. The only theoretical upside here, two upsides in theory here, are it is properly inspected and tested product, and the state's getting every cent that they deserve from the tax setup that they have in place. So only there's three upsides. Tax incentive, cleaner product, air quotes, and that's the one I don't believe in at all. And then the distributors make more money. Those are the three possible upsides. Everybody else in the game loses. I don't see it. I can't imagine any other correct answer or accurate answer.
I won't try to refute you.
So anyway, that's what we're dealing with. I think it's Senate Bill 1413. Write your people. Call them. Tell them Seth told you to call them. At least probably like 7 of them know my name. Depending on which ones you call, you might catch one that knows me. Call Massey's office. I don't know. I need to talk to her directly. I'm going to get with her this week and talk to her directly on. There's 3 bills that I'm looking at right now, because there's another one that's a nicotine tax that's going to kill me, and it's not really the tax part that's going to kill me. It's the state is going to oblige any any manufacturer who wants to sell into the state of Tennessee to register with the state of Tennessee, meaning there'll be an official list of products that are allowed to be sold in the state of Tennessee. Which goes back to that same competitive conversation. It's not going to be forced distributed through a local distributor, which is better. But if there's only 100 products that are legally allowed to be sold in the state of Tennessee because they went through the registration process, then every store is going to have the same selection. The only people that can really survive a format like that are the people that are big enough, that have other things going on, that they can win with a lower margin break. And so me, like an idiot, my two core competencies in business are hemp and nicotine. And so both of those, I can't lean on the other one in this new format that's moving forward to protect I can't lean on my hemp sales to make up for some of my lowered margins on nicotine, because I don't have the hemp sales anymore because I'm having to cut them down because of this other one. So I'm looking for sponsors for the podcast so that I can pay my bills. If anybody's out there that's been interested in sponsoring the podcast, I have other special skills. Nothing sexual, don't be weird. But I have some other special skills. So if anybody's looking for a good, hardworking, part-time employee, 6-figure income, but like 3 days a week, I'm your man. Hit me up, almostagreement@gmail.com. I'm probably going to need a job before the end of the year. So that's what's going on in the hemp in my neck of the woods, and it has eaten up the totality of my bandwidth this week and last week, like to the point where. So yesterday, one of the security things that my bank does, our business bank does, when you I think it's just like once a month, if not every 2 weeks. It just kind of kicks you out, and you have to go through this 2-step verification again. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Where it texts you or email you or whatever. So I'm sitting here.
You do this every couple of weeks, you said?
Yeah. Well, it's also sometimes...
It's an inactivity thing?
It's I don't know exactly what it is. Because I think one of it is that my login, our accountants use, and they're in Nashville. So when they use my login in Nashville, so it freaks out. So anyway, I'm sitting here. I go to the homepage for the bank. I hit login, and it does that sent you a code thing. And I kind of my phone beeps, and I look down at it, and I see that it sent me a code thing. And so I text Max. I was like, "Hey, you're trying to get in the bank account?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "Oh shit!" And then I look up at my computer screen because I was on my phone with this other part. Right. I look at my computer screen and it's on the screen waiting for me to put the 6-digit code in or whatever. And I text Max back. I was like, "I'm sorry, my brain is broken. That was me right here in front of myself, like literally, like I can't. I'll send you. I'll post a picture of the desk or something if you guys want to see it. But literally, my phone is sitting on my desk. I don't know what, 10 inches from my monitor.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, so that's how well my brain's been working this
It's all
week.
perspective.
Yeah. Well,
I had a funny brain fart driving around last week. Look down and I see like 9999 on my. I guess it ended up being my odometer, but when I first saw it, it just looked like out of place. I'm like, oh shit, like what the hell's wrong? I'm seeing like nines, like, and I was like, oh, and I saw it like click over to like 10,000 miles.
Did you get in? Get your 10,000 mile?
No, that's not such thing. I mean, maybe for some cars, I don't. Oh. But I don't know. There's no 10,000 mile service for mine.
Gotcha.
I was like, oh, what's this like error code? Like,
right.
Oh, never mind. Gosh,
what are the odds of looking at it at that exact
right.
moment? What movie is that? There's a movie where the car's about to hit 100,000 miles, and like the whole family's in the car. It might have been one of the National Lampoons. The whole family's in the car, and they're all looking at the odometer, and they hit somebody or something in the road, and they look up to see what it is. They're like, oh, what did we run over? What did we run over? And then somebody from the back of the car is like, we missed it. And so he throws into reverse, reverses for like a couple hundred yards, hits the thing again to get it back to 99,999.9 miles so that they could then go forward again and see it roll over. I don't remember what movie that was.
I remember there was a episode of Married with Children where his car was getting ready to go over 1,000,000 miles. And it went past it because he ended up taking it to a car wash. I think like the car manufacturer had showed up, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we want to do a magazine expose on your car. It's made it 1,000,000 miles." He took it to the car wash to get it washed. In the process of going through the car wash, it went past that 1,000,000 miles.
Boo!
But it came out looking beautiful.
That's poor Al Bundy. Al Bundy. Yeah. I just had a brain fart again. See, It has been a week, people. It
was like it was credited as kind of like one of the early shows to really show kind of like a true kind of quote-unquote working class. I mean, you had All in the Family that was a bit more of like a working class family.
Sanford and Son.
But
that was a black family, so it wasn't exactly the same.
I guess I think maybe there was more in their mindset of kind of like a, parental and child like household.
You know what's fun about that is that was on at the same time as the Cosby Show.
Sanford and Son?
No, Married with Children.
Married with Children, yeah.
Like that was on at the same time as the Cosby Show. Which one aged better? I mean, come on, people. Like that, it was a crazy. It's a crazy subtext. Let's see here.
Yeah.
What's going on with my thing here?
All sorts of hoopla.
Indeed.
We forgot to go by Chris's office. That's the thing. That was one thing.
I know.
We forgot to do
I was back down there again today, and I forgot about it again today. Why did you need to get back on Facebook just so I can store stuff with you because everything I've sent you.
You have ways to do this on your phone all to yourself.
I know.
I think there's like a notes app and like
I want to be lazy, man.
Voice memo app, and
I want to see.
You don't even have to like type this stuff.
There was a really cool story that I wanted to see if you'd seen.
Right.
And now I can't show it to you. You're just going to have to listen to it through the microphone.
Well, I guess maybe you just got to find things outside of Facebook that you can send it to me normally.
Yeah, maybe.
Security reform bill they estimate could save the troubled program billions by encouraging Americans to live faster and die younger. The so-called grab life by the balls bill includes provisions to cut the cost of cigarettes in half, outlaws helmets, and adjusts the CDC's recommended amount of sleep from 8 hours a night to when you're dead.
The most effective way to stem our out-of-control Social Security budget is for all Americans to go out early in a blaze of glory.
The bill's long-term initiatives...
It's an onion thing.
That's what I was about to say. Is that the Onion?
Yeah, it's really fun.
I do like how they go like all out. Like I always thought for the longest time I thought they just did like headlines, and then like actually like
they do
read
stories,
through read like the few story. I'm like, this is actually pretty well.
I mean, Babylon Bee has they definitely have a slant, but they're the same thing, and they've got some that are funny, and they make fun of Republicans sometimes, just not as much. Somebody signed me up for their newsletter. I get their newsletter. I didn't sign up for it. I feel like that was a Max thing. It goes on with my my Space Force newsletter that I get thanks to Max. I get it. Like, I mean, there's some like I have chuckled at many of a headline off of Babylon Bee. It's the same premise. as The Onion, and I like it. But it is like it is kind of weird because they also have like crazy things that they do ads for, like. But like this one, this great headline: Trump fired after forgetting to reply to Elon's email. That's a perfectly good satire headline.
Is that a Babylon Bee or that's Onion?
That's a Babylon Bee one.
Okay.
But then they get down here and they do stuff where it's like some of their ad stuff's like they're really just like, come on guys, you can do better. But yeah, like this is from a couple.
I mean, some of the Onion ones have almost gotten me where I'm like, that
well,
that sounds plausible.
Right, that's how crazy the world is right now. That they're starting to be believable. But that one that I did, that's the plot of a book called Boomsday.
Okay.
I think it's the last book I read front to back. It's been a while. I haven't read a full book in a long time. I don't know if that's something I should admit on air, but I don't do a lot of book reading. I do a lot of reading and listening to many podcasts of many types, a lot of politics, but we like our history stuff around here. I was going to brag on myself for that part. I was telling you before we got the show is I took a moment to show Dr. Briggs our logo for the studio logo, which I don't know if I've said it on the show or not, but that was my dad's. That was on my dad's captain helmet when he was or pilot's helmet when he was flying helicopters in Vietnam, and I always thought it was a cool little thing. And so anyway, it's the barbarian. Barbarian was his nickname, I guess, and the way it's spelled uses our last name and whatever. But it's like a Viking with a Viking helmet and the horns, whole thing. But it's like got a big old beard on it, and so I was showing it to him. He's like, I told him what it was, and Mr. Briggs is like, he's like, I wasn't sure if that was like a drawing of you or not, and I was like, no, actually, my dad didn't grow a beard. The only time he actually had any facial hair, to my knowledge, is he had a big old porn stash when he was in Vietnam. There's one picture of my dad sitting on the skid of his helicopter in country on base where he's got the dirtiest porn stash that you've ever seen. Other than that, my dad's never grown facial hair. To the point where it was thought to not be a functional thing that we could do in the men's in our family until I was about 30 and just stopped shaving for a while, and then this is what happened. But he then, Dr. Briggs then goes on to talk about, like, he's like, this should be like a Trivial Pursuit question or something like that, and I doubt you'll know it or whatever, but, for a long time, like Civil War and stuff, like American soldiers had full beards and long hair and all that kind of stuff, and like the history behind like the U.S. Army having to shave and do all that kind of stuff, I was like, it's a gas mask. And he's like, yeah, okay. Like, he was very surprised. I was last week when you knew the Gordie Howe hat trick like that. That's kind of how he reacted to me knowing the answer to that question.
Right.
Maybe if you want to take that same trivia question up a notch, do you know why the Hitler mustache is what it is?
Assuming that was a gas mask thing as well?
Yeah, because he had a big, long, like Salvador Dali mustache because that was popular during World War I. And when he was a soldier in World War I and was in a gas attack and was putting his gas mask on, he couldn't get his gas mask to seal to his face correctly because his mustache was hanging out the side. And so that's why he cut his mustache down to that little skinny mustache.
Same reason why firefighters can't have like beards and stuff. They can only have like, I guess, a certain length.
Right, something that their mask can go all the way over.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, that was, But then he said, he went on to say some more about like this would have been Desert Storm, pre-Desert Storm, where apparently the British gave the Iraqis a bunch of gas masks when they were fighting the Iranians back in like the 80s. And the Iranians gassed the shit out of them. And, a lot of Muslim cultures, beards are required. And so they had a really hard time dealing with getting gassed by the other. I don't remember the details of it. But they had a really hard time with gas attacks because, A, they were technically illegal, but, these were countries that weren't involved in the Treaty of Versailles and any of that stuff anyway. But B, everybody had a fucking beard.
Yeah. And I'd say those masks are pretty old at this point, too.
Yeah, probably also true. So
may or may not work that well in the first place.
I would love to have Mr. Briggs on and have him sit in the room with me and we could go for an hour or so. I think I'd have a good time.
Absolutely.
But I'm disappointed with the outcome of that one. But whatever. Like, I love that I did throw at the end of the episode, I did throw in there that I will be fighting him on this particular one as hard as I can. But I hope to see him again soon.
Right.
And then I read his own quote. Well, not his own quote, but a quote from his email signature line back to him to close the episode, which is the one about freedom doesn't get passed down to generations. It's got to be fought for over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. So let's go to war, buddy. So, because the other one I wanted to ask him that I didn't have time to, or patience with the internet to, was if he's going to run again next year. Because again, he's 73.
Yeah. I did see. I think
it's his third run. This is his third term he's currently on. Sorry, go ahead.
I did see. I think it's Congressman Rose or something announced that he's, I guess, looking into a gubernatorial bid. I think that was announced like a couple days ago. I think he's our current congressman. I think it was Rose.
Mm. Bad move. Marsha's going to eat you for lunch, buddy.
I still haven't seen that officially anywhere, or at least I guess maybe not on the local news sites, or even on like the.
You're right. Yeah, you're not wrong. And I've like Mayor Jacobs was in Washington or New York all week this week, doing the Fox News and Fox and Friends and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like he's got.
Is that where Fox is based?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
But he posted a picture of him in Gutfeld.
Mm-hmm.
It's a funny picture.
Is Gutfeld not very tall?
No.
Were they standing up next to each other?
Yeah, they're standing next to each other, and like Gutfeld's at Kane's tits.
Yeah. He's what, like 6'7"?
I mean, he's not that tall.
Is he not?
He's taller than me. I'm 6'1", 6'2", somewhere in there. He's taller than me, but not in the way that freaks me out. Okay. Like, people are taller than me sometimes, very rarely. I'm generally the tallest person in the room. But if somebody's a little bit taller than me, it twinges. I can feel it.
Right.
But if you're significantly taller than me, it freaks me the fuck out. Yeah. Like, it is, like, to the point where, like, I will say stupid things like, God damn, you're tall, man.
Right.
Where I wouldn't say that normally. I'm usually not that, like, actually I am kind of that type, especially in my dad mode when I get into dad mode on stuff. Like, my nephew, who is 17, is 6'8". And
he's not done growing.
Yeah. And, like, it's like, dude, this is not okay. There's something wrong with you.
Stop eating.
You need to fix this.
Eating too many vitamins.
I'm yelling at my sister about her kale diet she's been putting in. My sister's a half vegetarian. It's a whole joke. Right. Which is funny because her kids eat like shit, but whatever.
Getting some healthy stuff.
Sad news in the world of the people that matter, that care, that know that Mr. Hannah's Rafiq has passed away about 2 weeks ago. I just found out today, which is a super bummer. Really? So Rafiq of the clan Hannah, who was Hannah's New Amsterdam. It was a very. I would like to have. I only met him like 3 times. My wife worked for him at a couple of his different concepts. I know a bunch of people that are in that world, or that were in that world at the time, that I still see from time to time today, which is how I found out about it today. If I was doing this and still knew him enough to be like, hey, come do this silly little thing, I think it'd be an interesting bio.
Oh yeah,
he's Egyptian. Brought his kids over here to get them out of Egypt, but was very like he's very much the falafel Hassan from the Yassine from the falafel place.
Right.
Like Yassin's from Palestine. Rafiq was from Egypt, but a very similar kind of like loves America, loves Knoxville, loves Tennessee, loves everything about it here, but that is his homeland, and he cares a lot about it. And he did well in a lot of his bars and restaurants and stuff. And apparently he spent a ton of money back home on. That was where all his philanthropy goes. So like when we see the Haslam family or the Boyd family and all their charitable foundations and stuff, Rafiq was no different. It's just all his charities were back at home in Egypt.
Right.
Because apparently the Christian subsect that lives in Egypt, Christian Egyptians, are like the lowest on the totem pole of people that are worth a shit to any other Egyptian. And so as far as like subjugated and all that kind of shit, that was his homeland, and he was trying to fight that. So Anyway, sad news for those who knew. For those who don't, just a very interesting person who existed here locally that is no longer with us, and that's a bummer.
And then try to take another look at the bill that's ongoing. I don't even think it's in committee yet, but it has to do with banning phones in classrooms. And I think part of it was maybe to leave it open to the different counties as to how they wanted to implement it. But I guess they were trying to put some kind of effort into, maybe try to lessen the availability of technology in the classroom. That some see as a distraction or a possible distraction in the learning environment.
I mean, I get it. Like, when I worked for Cookout, like, they were hardcore, like, fired if you're on your phone inside the building. Like, that was their standard.
Like 5 or 6 months ago, I went through McDonald's drive-thru, and I pulled up to like the second counter where like you just pay the person. I'm not even like picking up my food yet. And I swear he was like, "Hey, sitting down," which I did occasionally when I was working drive-thru, whatever. But I swear he was just like watching a video and like waited like an extra like 5 seconds till the video was done to actually kind of like look up and take my money, give me my change back.
I would lose my shit. No,
I know. I was kind of like,
I just sit there like a fucking.
I'm like, all right.
I would do the same thing. I just sit there and be like, "This."
Like, I'll get my food in a second, but damn.
Kids these days is what I'm thinking, and I'm feeling old.
I mean, it's part of the kids, but also, I mean, they've got a manager that's supposed to be kind of looking after what they're doing, responsible on the job.
And, there's, I mean, I think the reality of that one, like that subset of things specifically, is I think we as the consumer population have just gotten kind of so used to it that we don't complain.
I'm guilty of it myself. I'm like, let me see if there's a new news story or whatever.
We don't complain about it like we used to. I mean, I sat and watched one of our cooks sitting on a stool in the kitchen, in the corner of the kitchen for 2 hours, just sitting on their phone the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I have a manager that I'm paying significant sums to get my money's worth out of these people. There's also no sales. They haven't sold food in a while, so we don't sell a ton of food. But, there's stuff.
Right.
There's things that can be done. Or just lie to me and look like you're doing something. At least pretend.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, we've got one of our staffers who likes to, her first order of duty when she comes to work is to check the 24-hour rest log and see if she recognizes anybody. And, like, to the point where it's kind of fun. It's kind of handy. Like, there's a person whom we've banned from the premises who she found this morning.
Nice.
We banned them months ago.
Right.
But it was literally, she texted the manager chat, and she's like, instead of the pictures, like, "Is this that lady we banned from here?" I'm like, "Yep."
She's in trouble.
Well, we don't have to worry about her coming in now. She's in jail.
Not in the next 24 hours, maybe.
Yeah. Then we found one of our employees in there one day. That was a fun one, but we knew that we were contacted by his sister or something like that. Like, "Hey, you got picked up for some bullshit, but he should be on work on time." It's like, okay, cool, whatever. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, we were like checking every once in a while, like maybe 10 or 15 years ago, just out of curiosity.
Yeah,
I think it was after like we had a mutual friend that like saw on the news like getting arrested and was like, "Oh shit! Like we're at the age where people we know are starting to do some bad shit."
I don't know. Everybody I've ever known it's almost always a DUI or a public intox.
Right. That's usually the ones that show up on the 24-hour arrest. Yeah.
Like I don't know many. I mean, Eric, what's his name, who killed a bunch of people, was on the UT drumline with me when I was there.
Who?
I can't remember his name. His last name is Eric something. I know his name is Eric. He was so we marched 6 bass drums at UT. He was bass 5. But he marched with us my freshman year. He was a sophomore or junior my freshman year at UT. Years later, he killed his wife and kid, or kids. I can't remember if it was plural. And that trial, like it wasn't like a super news trial, but it was enough that they actually covered it, like once every week or so.
Yeah. As
the trial was going on, and then when the verdict came out, they actually like Eric whatever found guilty of whatever. But other than that, like nobody I know that's going to jail is going to jail for anything other than a DUI. Maybe what does that say about my friends? But also, what does it say about who we arrest all the time? Like anybody that is in my friends circle that I would be freaked out if they went to jail would be some sort of fraud issue or something like that, not a DUI or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like we're at that age where like a DUI is dumb. Like, what are you doing, you idiot? But like if any of my friends committed a crime that would be logical, be like, oh yeah, I could see him doing that. It would be like a fraud or maybe a domestic. No, I don't really hang out with anybody that might be a domestic abuser. But yeah, like a fraud charge or maybe some sort of like complex theft, not some just simple, going and stealing stuff, but like robbing a bank or something like that. I could see that. Actually, that's another one. A friend of ours
That's what I was saying. We saw on the news.
Robbed a bank. Yeah. Oh, what a flashback that was. Sorry.
I mean, it's a little bit example of like a little bit of small worldness.
Yeah. Well, I guess I get that all the time though. Like, I have so many people that I know or that run in the same circles. Like, I met this guy, so we're teaming up with X Hunger for our Hollywood event this year. This guy's name's Jimmy Buckner. He's one of the founders of X Hunger, Scarecrow Foundation, X Hunger, that whole thing. And so I met him. We had a lunch and we were talking about the plan and stuff like that. But so I hadn't met him yet. The other people we were meeting were at the table, and I'm going around the room at the place we were meeting, and I'm just saying hello to some people that I know in the room while we're waiting for the other people to show up. And I look over, and there's this other guy walking around the room saying hello to the same people that I just said hello to, while he's waiting for the other people in his meeting to show up. And then we both go to the same table and sit down, and then we get introduced to each other. And it's like, oh, how do we not know each other at this point? Because everybody you just said hello to, I also just said hello to because I know those people.
Right.
Like, we have the same circle of friends or acquaintances or colleagues or whatever you want to call it, but we've never met each other. It's like, well, small world. Here we go. Let's get to work.
Yeah.
So we're on board, and they're supposed to be rolling out a new initiative. I'm actually going to invite him on the show once they're ready to announce their initiative, because I'd like to do it on the show and then do it as part of Hollywood. But we're not sure the timing on it. I think it's a really cool. It's exactly what we need, but that's a secret until it's not a secret. So I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. Other than all the stuff I already said.
Nothing else. I won't drag it out of you.
Okay.
No arm twisting.
But yeah, small world stuff is small world stuff. So
there was 40 was opening back up. I think today or tomorrow.
Yeah, I saw that another lane.
Or at least 2 lanes.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was down to 1 lane in each direction, but I guess that's not actually starting until tomorrow. I'm glad they at least still preface. They're you're still looking at hours wait. So
yeah,
they're it's open, but please still try to go around it.
If you got options, go somewhere else.
Right.
We'll see where they are in July. I've got to run that stretch in July.
Well, I want to see they were ahead of schedule, at least getting it back to 1 lane in each direction. I thought they said they were waiting until they thought that it could still be a few more months, because all just kind of depended on clean up, and then I guess more so the engineering of the road, since part of that kind of washed down into that river in that section.
Yeah. So
it's more of how stable that ground was underneath it.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not easy. It's not an easy job to do, especially when you're trying to hurry it.
Right.
It's that. So yeah, you mentioned the Trump interview, or the Trump-Zelensky blow up. And I'd seen clips of it on NBC News. What's your takeaway? Did you watch the actual thing, or you just see some coverage of it?
Good chunk of it. I don't know. It was kind of sad to watch.
What was sad about it?
I guess just both sides getting to heat it. I'm not really sure where it went off the rails. I kind of wanted to go back and watch and see.
I would like to.
I don't know if you saw anything that there was a bipartisan meeting. I think it may have been with just senators, but at least congressmen that had a meeting with Zelensky earlier in the day that apparently went well. And then it was
apparently
kind of
they were on
right
the edge
after.
of side of this deal. And then I guess J.D. Vance said diplomacy in the same sentence as Putin, and then Zelensky kind of blew up on him, and then it just devolved from there. Was my take of it, or at least NBC's explanation of what happened.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I don't know what a rare earth mineral is, and apparently everybody's got them. Russia's got them.
Some more so than others, yeah.
Russia's got them. Ukraine's got them.
We've got some. I mean, we've got, I think it's lithium mines out in Arizona and stuff that's kind of gone through court battles, as far as I think some of it's on tribal lands.
Of course.
And also, I mean, it's...
Why wouldn't it be? Because we haven't fucked them over enough. Let's get a new thing we got to kick them off their land for.
Well, I think it's a really kind of I hate to say dirty, but it's very it could be a very hazardous, I guess, extraction. I guess maybe the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's not clean.
Right.
I agree. Dirty's a fine word.
I hate to just call it a dirty process, but I guess there's a lot of safeguards in place.
It's either really, really expensive, or it's really, really gross. I think it's the reality of it, which is why we want to do it in Ukraine and not in Arizona.
You guys just pick it up. We just want some after you dig them out of the ground.
Look,
you guys packing them up.
Here's the whole breakdown and the lack of decorum in front of the cameras and stuff like that. One, Why is that? Why was that meeting in front of the press? I would think 9 times out of 10, the actual nuts and bolts of the conversation are behind closed doors. Right. And then they do a joint presser, which Trump canceled the joint presser because they kicked Zelensky out of the White House.
Yeah. I saw they were supposed to have like a joint press conference after that.
But normally you have that exact, I mean, that could be, I would think that that's not abnormal.
No, apparently they kind of have that, and then they'll go into a separate room and kind of have like a coming together, or kind of like a rediscussion before they come out and do another press conference.
But I'm saying usually the nuts and bolts and the argumentative shit and the stuff that gets people's feelings hurt and stuff like that, you don't do that in front of a camera.
Right.
You say, let's go hash out these details, and then let's go present these details after we agree on them. True. Because hashing out these details is going to be, it might be pissy. Because I don't disagree with Zelensky from his point of view. Any agreement for anything, if we get access to their rare earth minerals or whatever and get to profit off of them to get our money back, which is Trump's plan, Zelensky's mindset is that doesn't work for me if I don't have securities guarantees. Trump said, we are not, the United States and its military is not guaranteeing the security of Ukraine, period, full stop.
All right.
And then, it wasn't a ridiculous argument in substance. It was just ridiculous to watch. It's not something that I would think would be appropriate to put out in front of the public. Because again, I think I agree with Trump's perspective of, I'm sorry, Vladimir, you don't really have, he kept saying cards, and then it got into this gambling metaphor argument for a second. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, right. He's like, what cards? We're not gambling. We're not playing. And then Trump's like, we're gambling with millions of lives and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, Trump's metaphor, if you don't, in the negotiations here, in the conversation, in this thing, you don't have the cards you think you do. We do, because the card that you want to play is us protecting you. Well, that's our card. And we get to put that card on the table if we want to. You don't get to put that card on the table for us. Which, again, Trump in a very dickish way is like, you don't have anything without us in this conversation. And I agree with him on that. I don't think we should have seen that part of the conversation. It should have been dealt with. And if they didn't come to agreement, they come out and do their joint presser and be like, we had a difference of opinions. We couldn't find a common ground on reason X, Y, or Z. We're going to take a break, go back and talk to some people, and maybe we'll try to get together in the next couple of days and see if we can't figure this out again.
Right.
But this conversation fell apart. There's no way we're making any progress tonight. That's that. That would be totally reasonable to me. And exactly everything happens the same way, except instead of
a lot with negotiations,
right?
Of like, hey, we're still working, hashing out, blah blah blah.
Right, but instead of that hashing out part happened in front of everybody, the hashing out part's usually somewhere else.
Right.
And so I think this is a very normal transactional thing that happened. It's just that we got the weird ism of we actually got to see.
Well, I think even then, those negotiations don't go on between even the heads of state like that. Like that's your defense ministers, et cetera. They kind of are doing that kind of back and forth. I would think, but
it depends.
Like you said, a lot of that stuff goes on behind closed doors.
Right. It depends when and where you are. It depends on the severity of the situation and how important it is. Right. But at the end of the day, that is the job of the President of the United States. And presumably, I don't know the Ukrainian constitution, but presumably, the president the President Zelensky could hand that off to a defense minister to go handle.
Well, they're the ultimate decision makers, but I would say, I don't know, we always hate it when we equate kind of governments to businesses, but like a CEO would basically have kind of their right hand people, their CFO, et cetera.
Well, but I don't know.
They do merger negotiations, et cetera.
I'll put an inverse example to you when you were with the T-shirt people. They had a whole sales team that went out and did all the sales stuff, but when a particularly special client came in, who did the sales?
That was to their own detriment. But yes, I see what you're saying, but yeah.
But that's, maybe it's not the best strategy for the company overall because the owner of the company doing the negotiation with the buyer, because their buddies may give away more than he needs to give away or whatever. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But at the end of the day, if Zach or Jim or Bill or whoever in the sales team was doing that negotiation with whatever the buyer was, and that buyer just goes, hey, I'm calling the boss and I'm going to talk to him about it. maybe Zach or whomever doesn't get in trouble in the middle. I don't know where Zach came from in this conversation. I'm sorry.
I was thinking just any kind of like high level. I mean, just kind of sticking to corporate. Even just like corporate mergers or any kind of like corporate like negotiations. Like those are not done at like the CEOs like talking to each other on the phone. I mean, they may be a part of like some group calls, but a lot of the like back and forth negotiations.
I think it depends.
They do not put at the top mind frame or mind space to deal with for hours and hours.
I think it depends on the situation, but I disagree on in general.
I could very well be wrong.
I think if it's like Berkshire Hathaway bought Pilot, right? Remember that whole thing?
Did it finally go through?
Yeah, I don't think Warren Buffett was sitting in with the Haslam family. I think the Haslam family was sitting in with whoever Warren Buffett sent to talk to him. You know what I'm saying? Because Berkshire is so much bigger than that they might send a lieutenant to go talk to, but the top tier of Pilot being so much smaller is sending ownership, or is sending the CEOs, is sending their absolute top level. And so, now that being said, the comparable would be, Rubio or somebody lower down in this should be the one talking to Zelensky. Trump shouldn't be, because the United States and Ukraine are not equal players.
That's all right.
And so it would be to me to agree with your example, it would be a Secretary of State or something like that dealing with Zelensky and Ukraine that then reports that back.
Not what I was saying whatsoever.
That would be my thoughts on that. Would be the logical.
That's exactly what I meant. That's where you have defense ministers talking to each other.
Maybe, whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying, but as far as the size of the player makes a difference in who comes to the table for that player, I think was my point.
Okay.
What are you nodding your head at me like that for?
Nothing.
Yeah, something.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, I'm a little worried about it. I feel like you. Whatever. I mean, it has happened before. I'm trying to think of an example. I know it was. It was Secretary Clinton hosted. Who was it? I don't remember. It was the president of somewhere on some sort of negotiating talks because Obama didn't have time for it.
Oh.
I'll
take your word for it.
But
I'm trying to think what conflict in like Syria maybe that was going on when Obama was president.
Well, she killed Gaddafi, so it wasn't Gaddafi that she met with.
Yeah.
Look how Syria's doing today. I don't know. I'm just talking shit. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sorry I brought it up. I don't know.
Let me make this example that I'll even say doesn't make any sense.
I don't know how Syria's doing today. Are they getting bombed by Israel right now?
I think I saw they're bombing southern parts.
Yeah, they said this, like there's a 35-mile security corridor or something that Israel is demanding exists now or something like that.
I'm not sure if we've heard anything from Assad. I think he did like one interview or put out some kind of statement after he left.
Yeah.
Afterward, it was like, I don't know, they've got a few different factions, and one faction, right, I guess, kind of came in and took over the main city, Damascus.
Yeah, and then they don't have the infrastructure and wherewithal to really fight off Israel right now, and so Israel's feeling themselves, and they're going to go clarify some rules on how that border works.
But Turkey's a player in it, and I'm not sure where exactly they lie.
I did think there was somebody, Brian.
I think they were supporting like one faction in Syria, but then Iran, I think, was supporting like another small faction. Yeah.
I think it was Ryan Grimm on Breaking Points made an interesting point. He's like, there's one thing you got to think about that's kind of weird. It's only like the last 200 years that we've had these countries the way that they are, that we continually fight over there. Like, yes, there's been continual wars and stuff over there for sure, but you had the Ottoman and the Byzantine Empire for like 2,000 years prior, and it was relatively peaceful comparatively when it was under those empires.
Yeah, the Ottoman Empire didn't end until I think like the 70s. Early 20th century.
I thought it was like the 50s or 60s, maybe even 70s.
I thought it was kind of around like World War I era.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, you're right. That's my bad. But yes, it was an interesting little fact. Like, I just thought that was an interesting little thing. Is because, like, you know, this Iran, Iraq, all these different countries that exist now, like it was all part of the empire.
Well, even I'm not exactly sure when Italy did, but I think Germany didn't become like kind of unified Germany until like the mid to late 1800s, and I think
Yeah,
Italy was
just
similar. It was
Right.
not really city-states, but it was...
Well, you had the Holy Roman Empire forever, and that was a whole set of small nations under that.
Right, I'm
emperor.
talking recent history.
Holy Roman. When did the Holy Roman Empire end?
Middle Ages,
Like 16 something.
maybe. I don't know when Rome was like kind of pushed back.
Like
Not exactly, because it
like
kind
Rome
of...
fell at like 400.
Well, you had like the schism when like the East and West kind of split, and I think that was
Right, and
even
then the
before
West continued, and it became the different whatever.
Roman Catholic versus Eastern Orthodox Church.
I don't remember. See, we suck at history. We don't suck at history.
I'm pretty sure I'm saying it basically, but accurately. And what was called the Great Schism was
right.
I think that was division of the Holy Roman Empire. So that was kind of like the beginning of kind of like the breakup of the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah, the Holy Roman Empire was post Rome. Post the Roman Empire. That was the remnants of. I think the Holy Roman Empire was the remnants of the Western portion of the Roman Empire, because that went all the way up into Germany and Austria and Hungary and Ukraine and Poland and all that kind of stuff, which Rome proper never really took over the German states until well after.
Yeah, but I think that'd still be made like pre-1000 AD.
Right, but the Holy Roman Empire existed for like 1,000 or like 800 years or 700 years, something like that.
I can't remember exactly.
Because that's when you got all the weird, like, because there was one of the royal families in the empire is there was a bunch of the married off family kind of shit that they do with Europe with.
Well, I think there was a couple of expansions because at one point they were in England, but then they got beat back from England and then slowly kind of beat back out of France. You know, you had I guess it was like the Visigoths or whatever that actually, like the Germanic tribes that actually attacked the Holy Roman Empire all the way down to, I think, like, you know, the outskirts of Rome itself. So I mean, I think there's been years of kind of like ebb and weigh.
But I think that I think that was pre Holy Roman Empire. That was
that was when the Holy Roman Empire fell, but that was
Roman
Empire.
That was when the Roman Empire fell, not the Holy Roman Empire.
Okay, yeah, maybe we're talking about
it's a separate. That was the Holy Roman Empire was after, like the Romans had fallen out into the dark.
Maybe I was thinking completely Roman.
Into the Dark Ages, and then the Holy. Anyway, doesn't matter. We'll consult our history books and get back to you guys on that one. Oh,
history.
Rant. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think it's weird. I don't think it's weird that conversation happened. I think it's weird that we got to see that conversation. I think is my point. I do get where you're coming from, that the fact that the two heads are sitting down together is less common. It's usually some sort of...
No, I mean, as far as doing like the negotiation, I don't think that those negotiations happen at the top level very often. There's something that they're obviously involved in, but I think on like, you know, kind of what we saw, this kind of like back and forth or whatever.
I feel like I disagree with you on that one. I'm not thinking of... I
know a lot of this goes on behind closed doors. I'm just assuming that this doesn't
what was the Camp David Accords? It was Carter and dude from Egypt and dude from Israel.
Right, but I'd say to an extent that there's a good bit of like pre-negotiations that go along with it.
Agreed. I mean, there's been plenty of moving parts and pieces over the last couple of weeks before this meeting happened.
Right.
Yes. And whether Zelensky and Trump were the heads of all the different parts and pieces leading up to it, or they had different deputies doing that work, is either one. Probably more often than not, it was the deputies doing all the lead up. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I think when it gets down to like the final parts and pieces, I would at least hope it goes across the president's desk, whether he's actually physically talking to the other person or not. Like
I said, they're obviously involved in like, I guess, you know, the final negotiations as far as, you know, once final pen gets to paper type thing. But I would think still like the actual like kind of pre-negotiations.
Right. I think
really done.
I think it depends on the president as well. I think different presidents have different methods on that, because apparently Carter specifically was like a super micromanager. Like he tried to do everything by himself.
I've heard that about Obama as well.
Yeah, like he was super
he liked to micromanage or something.
Yeah. To the point where like apparently Carter didn't do any of his, like all of his speeches he rewrote it, like he would get like a stack of them and throw them all out and rewrite them himself.
Speechwriter was like, "Nah, I got something better."
Yeah, and they'd be like, "This is perfect. This will hit all the notes you want to hit, everything." And apparently to the point where it was like he would tell them what he wants to say, and they would go write the speech and bring it back, and he would throw it out and say something completely different. Like it wasn't like they were.
He was a well-spoken person.
But I would say like it's not like they were off key for him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that they were trying to write stuff in there that he didn't mean or that he didn't feel was true. It was just whatever, I'll just do it like all the time. But apparently, again, it's a management style, and that depends on the president. They get to manage it how they want to. And I think for Trump, I think politically Trump wants to be all over both this Ukraine one and the Israel one, whether or not it's that weird AI video version of Gaza or like some real actual peace accord. Because we were texting back and forth about this. I'm not saying he will get one, and I'm really thinking hard on this bet because I kind of want to take it. But there are 2 Nobel Peace Prizes on the table that Trump could get if he wants to. Literally, if he wants them. If he can, and I think depending on how this continues to roll out with the Ukraine thing, I think he might already have one in the bag. If he can shut down this Ukraine war, and he gets to be, he's the guy that brokered the peace and got this Ukraine war over with, that's a Nobel Peace Prize right there.
It's possible.
Now, I could see with Trump being Trump that the Nobel Committee or whoever that thing works doesn't come across and give it to him, but comparatively, circumstantially, he should get a Nobel Peace Prize for that because other presidents have for similar situations. Other world leaders have, not just presidents, but other world leaders have for doing essentially what he's going to end up doing in Ukraine, what I think he's going to end up doing in Ukraine. And I think if he can get the Israel-Gaza situation settled, again, without weird bearded drag queens or whatever that fucking video was, I think he could get a second one there. I think it's totally possible. But he's also Trump, and it could totally possibly be something completely different that happens. You want to talk about that video?
I mean, I can't see it, I guess, especially at least in that instance, that I don't know. I mean, I don't see how that's taking the conflict seriously whatsoever. And especially when I mean, 'cause I don't even think it's much of a ceasefire. I saw some politicos talking about it today, and they were laughing about it. And they're more informed on the Middle East conflict and the current kind of state of it. I mean, they were kind of joking about there being a current ceasefire, because I think it's every other day or so still see about Israel bombing parts. I think now it's in the West Bank where they're doing bombings.
Right, but that's not where the ceasefire was negotiated. The ceasefire was negotiated for Gaza.
Oh, gotcha.
Which again, I mean, I'm not. I think I've been clear on the show where I stand on the whole conversation of what's going on over there. I'm not an expert by any stretch.
That's my misunderstanding of the ceasefire.
I'm not sure that's true either, but I think that's what it's because again, going back to the beginning of it, it's what is the West Bank and what is Gaza, internationally speaking? They're not independent nations, because that's the one thing Israel refuses to let the two-state solution be an option. They are technically part of Israel.
I want to say Palestine has a seat at the UN table. I mean, I think they're recognized as a people. They have a flag. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what their international standing is. But I mean, it's vague.
But the phrase two-state solution gets thrown around all the time.
Right.
Well, if the solution would be to give them each a state, or for them to each have their own state, that means one doesn't have a state right now. And we have a state of Israel. There is not a state of Palestine.
As it stood, yeah.
Right.
They have weird, I think it's international borders where, like you said, the West Bank and Gaza are separate areas.
Right, but they're separate. They're technically
kind of separate
speaking
islands, but they're considered Palestinian territory.
This weird little, and again, this goes into my imaginary lines thing too, and I know, but I'm picking apart my own imaginary lines thing. But literally, the only logical explanation in the world order of things is that they are territories inside of Israel. They're independent territories inside of Israel.
I mean, to an extent, you could say that Israel recognized those borders because they put huge walls and kind of compounds surrounding around them.
Well, I mean,
they saw where a quote-unquote proverbial line was, and they're like, okay.
Well, they recognize them insofar as that's the prison where we're going to leave the people that we don't want in our country. It's just a giant open-air prison as a take.
Some definitely see that way.
I mean, I guess the comparable would be like the independent Native American nations we have here. Like the Cherokee Nation is independent and outside of the standard threshold of jurisdiction of the United States, but they are within the United States and they do get some of the protections the United States has internationally and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it is kind of a...
That'd be the closest good thing. That's the only thing I can think of.
There are tribal laws that apply, and I think there's some federal laws that don't come to apply on certain tribal lands.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know exactly how that works, but that seems the most similar comparative that I can think of for what it is. And so, again, I don't know how you create a peace deal without a two-state solution, without an independent Palestinian government existing. So I don't know. Like that's the part of this thing that I'd never like. Palestine existed as a country prior to 45 or whatever it is.
I've looked it up a couple times. I can't remember like what exactly was on the map prior to.
Right. It's a weird map that
prior to the Allies coming in and basically saying, "Hey, we're creating Israel."
Yeah. It's weird. Anyway, I don't think the Gaza Riviera would be Nobel Prize winning. I don't think that's a Nobel Prize winner for Trump.
I mean, that's my kind of thought in it. That I think I'm in accordance with some people that are kind of opposed to this idea of turning, recognized area and what some people call their homeland. Essentially turning it into a resort, supposedly for them, I guess. Because part of the plan was
because wherever we stick them while we're building their resort is going to be so nice they won't want to leave. That's the Trump quote.
I've seen a little bit of both. That I thought part of it was like to maybe temporarily displace them so they can rebuild, so they can come back and have a nice place to live in. But it's not exactly.
No, and one of the guys, I can't remember what paper it was, but somebody in the press corps like flat asked him. It's like, so are the Palestinians going to be able to come back when this thing's done? No.
Okay.
And it was, but then he quickly went like, no, because they're not going to want to leave. We're going to build them such a beautiful place to. The place we're going to build isn't a temporary place. It's going to be a new home for them, and it's going to be so nice that they're not going to want to come back because it's just destroyed rubble. But after you rebuild it into this nice thing, are they going to be able to come back? No, because they're not going to want to leave.
There's been some interesting statements. I want to say it was when he met UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, I think is his name, Starmer, something.
Starmer.
I think it was the day before. I don't remember in what context, but basically said the EU was created to destroy America or to bring America down, basically. And then was asked about it while sitting next to him, and he's like, "Hey, you said this yesterday, blah blah blah," and he's like, "Well, I said that." It's like, yeah, you did.
Well, who was I talking to? Because it was really only trying to tell them what they wanted to hear, not what.
Oh wait, not when I'm sitting next. Which I think, I don't know, UK's out of the EU now, so I guess he could talk shit about the EU.
Yeah, I
think UK, or at least half of UK, is still friendly with the EU. Like a lot of UKers are kind of regretting the whole Brexit. They thought it would be a big windfall, for their economy, and they're saying maybe it's not so much a benefit to us to be completely separate. And they were like, hey, can we still trade stuff, please? They're like, well, you guys are in a different economic zone now. So, I mean, it's different rules apply. Because I think shortly after that, it got into, I don't think it got too contentious, but you kind of had EU and UK waters as far as, that's a big fishing zone for a lot of countries. I'm sure you have kind of international boundary lines.
The new 100 Years' War is at play. Here we go.
I mean, but the high seas fisheries, that whole industry is crazy. I don't know if you've heard any the crazy horror stories of kind of ragtag fishing operations in the South Pacific that basically have workers that they pick up, just kind of generally illegal migrants in different ports, people looking for a job, and then they get stuck on the boat for just decades and never get paid. They're just kind of essentially just slave labor on a boat.
Doesn't surprise me. I hadn't heard that.
Some like that, I guess. There's some even they're just kind of struggling companies that they end up declaring bankruptcy, and they just kind of leave the ship in port. And I guess there's some weird law that those workers can't really sue for pay if they abandon the ship. So there's been a lot of cases of these large fishing boats just like sitting at a port, and the workers basically having to like try to stay and live on the boat so they can try to, I guess, go through the process of like trying to sue to get pay that they were guaranteed or whatever.
Yep. The high seas are not the life for me. I promise you that. I like to pretend I'm a pirate every once in a while, but nope.
Even then, just like international boundary lines, I'm sure you can get on, I don't know what website it is, but you can track, shipping boats and stuff like that all around the world.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of like older ships that just kind of like turn off their like little GPS monitor because they're in another country's waters, kind of illegally fishing their areas.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy. I don't know what to say about it.
Especially, I think South Pacific, just because it's so big, such deep waters, and you have disputed territorial waters. But it's also a very big industry. Everybody loves their seafood.
They do.
And we want it cheap.
We do. We don't care how we got it. We don't care how it gets here.
Imitation crab meat, as long as it looks and tastes like it, sure.
Oh, soybeans, yuck. Yeah, there wasn't a lot local. There was some. There was a little bit of an uproar on the sheriff's office. Is spending more on the G287 program than the feds are giving them.
Is that the new like an ICE program?
Yeah, it's the like
working with federal government and ICE.
Well, apparently part of this argument was more over like ICE is bringing detainees to the whatever Knox County.
Did see? I think we had like 13 or something.
Right, and it's like, hey, can you hold on to these for a while until we figure out where we're deporting them to or whatever?
Give them like a per diem per day.
Right, but it's less than it costs the sheriff's office per day to house somebody. So it's like, well, I don't remember, like, okay, you want to help out with the program, that's fine, but I don't remember agreeing to pay for it.
Right.
If this is something you can do within the budget you have, whatever. But if you're going over budget because you're doing somebody else's job, then we need to have a conversation here because the budget comes through the county commission. So county commission was asking some questions on that one.
Yeah, I did see that.
Apparently, Sheriff Spangler was mum when asked questions, more or less.
I saw there was at least some kind of, I don't know if it came from the press or whoever, but they were, I guess, questions as to how many detainees, because they knew we were operating with this. They were like, hey, how many people do we have if we're participating in this program? How many are we holding right now? And again, like you were saying, how much does it cost us to hold these people?
Right. And the question I have, this is the business question. I'm not pretending that the whole thing's not gross by itself, but like, if we have room for 13, if that's the number, do you get does Spangler get to argue that some of that's sunk cost? Like an empty cell costs X number of dollars a day, whether we have anybody in it or not. And so maybe that's the Fed's math: is we're not paying you for space that was otherwise empty, but we'll pay you for the extra staff you have to have on.
Extra staff after food, yeah.
Right.
So I was about to say, I think a lot of jails are pretty much, usually here it's pretty common being overpopulated.
Right. Which then theoretically means that it's just bonus money.
Like, well, we had to at least give them a pillow.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, if you don't, like, if you're at capacity and you just are getting paid to put more things in there, it only costs you a tiny bit more for those extra people.
Yeah, there is that certain level that it's not costing you that much more.
Right. And so I don't know if that's the question or not. I don't know if anybody's tried to make that argument or not. But
you would think most private prisons wouldn't remain private if they weren't profitable.
Yeah, but Knox County is not a private prison. That is property that's ours. Me and you, we own that. Well, you don't. You don't live in Knox County anymore. Yeah, that's the Knox County Detention Center. It's not the detention center for Knox County. It is the Knox County Detention Center.
Yeah, that one right. I might be thinking of the one in Nashville. But I think it's had some issues in the news.
I mean, I don't know. This is a fun one to get in arguments with people about. I don't mind the premise. I just don't like the incentives.
I'm agreeing with you.
I always say, I agree that the standard that what we generically use the term private prisons. I agree that that's a problem. I agree that the generic use of the term private prisons, as we know them, are problematic because they just suck. They suck at everything they do, and they're terrible. I'm not saying they should be nice, but they're terrible and abusive, and like some bullshit about keeping people in longer because you get paid more to keep them in longer, even if they didn't do anything, or you figure out how to make infractions up out of nowhere, or that kind of shit. So you can keep them longer, so you can get paid more, and it's like that's not okay. I don't want that.
I mean, that's a crazy numbers game on both ends. I mean, you can say like, "Hey, we're keeping crime down because we're keeping these offenders in here longer, or whatever."
Right, but you can't prove that negative, so that's kind of a bullshit argument anyway. Well, yeah, the dude's
like I said, there can be kind of that incentive of having more people in there. So
he's 85 and diabetic. He's not going to assault anybody. Right. He can go out and live his life. Yeah. Well, of course, I don't know. There is a conversation that that's a fucked up thing to say. Whatever. You put him outside. You put him out. He's going to go into some sort of state-paid nursing care center because he can't live on his own either. And so, which one's more expensive? Probably the nursing care than just leaving him in jail till he dies. But that's not cool either. I'm not trying to advocate for it. Just poking holes in my own logic or my own example.
It was a famous like Sheriff Arpaio out in like Arizona or Nevada. He was a big kind of like firebrand sheriff.
I remember that.
But I think he had a bunch of just like old like army tents.
Yep, put him out. Just put a big fence up out in the middle of the desert. And wasn't it kids too? Wasn't it like wasn't it his juvie center?
I'm not. I hope not, but maybe.
Maybe I'm mixing him up with that with the plot of holes.
Plot of holes.
The plot of holes. The book Holes.
Oh. I think I watched it. I'm not sure. It's been a long time if I watched that movie. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I can picture like the front of the movie cover or whatever, but the actual premise escapes me.
Well, that joke didn't land very well. But there was some heat on the sheriff for that, which, I mean, I'm glad to see that Sheriff Spangler's enough to go doing well enough. I mean, that's nice.
That's right, yeah.
Going through his, what was it?
Pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, because usually that's a killer.
I think it is like one of the...
A quick killer.
Yeah.
So there's that. Chief Noel brought in a new deputy chief from Iowa. There's some story on that. I don't really care, per se, other than I'm confused because he was the sheriff of some county, or not sheriff, but he was the chief of some precinct or police department in Iowa, and then he spent the last couple of years doing some, basically being like a top end IT guy for some Fed agency. And is now getting back into law enforcement, in the front lines of law enforcement, but he's going to be the director of our investigations unit. And so I'm curious if part of that is he's going to bring his tech skills in and try to get his investigators better at using the technology available, which is the thing that grosses me out that KPD is doing right now. So, add that to my list. I need an interview with Chief Noel so that I can argue with him about the real-time crime center, because that's not my favorite.
Just try to find out what you can on it before you sit down, so you can at least come back with them, or come back at them maybe with some things of like, well, in this city that uses it like this, they've seen this issue. I don't know. You do you, Burr.
Well, see, the problem is mine's a philosophical argument, and so comparable data is irrelevant. I mean, I don't know. Like, yes, theoretically, it could do wonders for the amount of crime, and we could have way less crime because they use the surveillance system well.
I know it's the idea that you have the most issues with. I get it.
Right, and so I can't Louisville, Kentucky's been using one, and their crime rate hasn't changed. I mean, it adds a little bit of oomph to my argument per se, but
I guess maybe if you could find a city, that saw like lawsuits or something that they had to fight as an effect of these. Yeah. If a city that's been doing it for 5 years, if they've already had 2 separate, lawsuits that the city has had to pay out, which lawsuits probably wouldn't have gone that fast, but
right.
as an odd example.
Well, speaking of lawsuits,
been like, hey, if this is in the gray area at all.
Right. This deputy chief's got one pending from when he was still in Iowa too, which is fun. So,
yeah.
Well, it's one of his. Well, when he was chief, one of his deputy chiefs was the target of a sexual assault claim, and that lawsuit's kind of continued to roll in, and whether or not the chief had any whatever. No, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't know. That's not my style. I know it should be. I should be better at what I do if I'm going to try to do it.
I was just trying to encourage you to go in as most informed as possible.
Wow.
Just it's like, I don't know anything about this. Will you tell me what this is?
Will you explain it to me, and then I'll tell you why I don't like it?
Right.
I mean,
otherwise they can just kind of give you the whole song and dance.
But to be honest, there's a little bit of there that's actually some of that is I've thought that through, and some of that is actual strategy. Like, honestly,
right.
That's what okay to put
to maybe catch them on trying to
put it on the table
is a little misleading.
I mean, that's
what
I
read in this. It says this.
That's what
don't want to do it to me. You don't want to be gotcha.
That's what I tried to do with Briggs today. Was not that I was trying to catch him in anything, but it's like because literally like the question, the one question I asked that I didn't get answered was, why are you doing this?
Right.
Like what is the inspiration here? I should have asked your question, and it's like, who asked for this? Because that's one of the questions you ask all the time. It's like, which I mean, I guess that's kind of wrapped up with the same thing. It's like,
right.
Was this a constituent thing? Was this a business thing? Like, or you just do this on your own? And I mean, and I like your your thought process. Like the way you ask that, does get me thinking a lot. It's like, is that what we want our legislators to do on their own accord, or should they be doing it on behalf of? Because it seems to me that he's doing this on his own accord, on this specific.
I mean, it doesn't. I mean, you talk to the guy, but it doesn't seem like he has much of a dog in the fight. So I'm not sure why he would kind of take a personal stance on it.
Because I think that I think he does.
Or in the idea that this is kind of his little personal pet project of sorts.
I mean, I think it is his pet. I think he has. There's something about it that I can't figure out about him on it. Like my initial thoughts were that it was absolutely he is the full reefer madness guy, and he thinks that marijuana is raping white women kind of thing. And that he is just a good enough operator in the political sphere to figure out ways to get to that end without having to be that obnoxious and kind of tone deaf about it.
I mean, to a semi-outs or to most Tennessee voters that don't know anything about it, to outsiders, you say this person is a doctor, and they're talking about a bill that kind of has health implications.
Right, but that's
has
just
a little more
least,
gravitas.
That's what's crazy about it, is because he literally said from the doctor perspective, like he is perfectly okay with it.
Really?
Like if we want to put a bill for medical marijuana in place, the doctor in him is like, if we put a structure in place that makes it medically legal, because we talked a little bit about Becky's bill she did a couple of years ago,
right?
Which he tried to correct me on, and I was like, no, I know what she did.
He's pragmatic in that sense, to where he will also at least say, he would like it to be more in line with federal government, to where I guess maybe he doesn't want there to be that friction.
Well, I guess one of the questions that I guess comes to mind that I didn't think in real time to ask would be like, well, is there a negative to not being in line? Is there something that's like, is there some like federal money that the state's not going to get because our hemp law does not match up with their hemp law? Like, what's the downside if we're not lined up? Is there a negative in play that we don't know about? Because if so, just say so. Like the federal government won't spend X number of dollars on this thing if your laws don't match up with ours. I'm sure it's out there. I would imagine that like Colorado and California, especially under a Republican majority DC right now, are not getting access to certain things, and that might be the excuse that the Trump White House is giving for why they're not giving California X. So, because you have laws that are in direct violation of federal law, so we don't have to give you this grant. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to fund this project for you because you're not in compliance with federal law.
That's one way to do it. Yeah.
Is that something that is? But if that's the issue, that's not the issue.
Well, I think it's always been like a banking issue, at least on that, even in like legal, medical, whatever. It's always kind of been a weird area as far as...
Yeah, no, but that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about like direct... The federal government is not funding Project B for California because Trump's a dickhead and doesn't want to fund them, but the excuse that he can give on why he's not doing the funding is because their laws aren't in compliance with federal law. Now, is there something that Tennessee, being in violation of federal law with this particular subset, would be a negative to...
I don't think we're in violation of... Well, I don't know.
According to Briggs, we are. Like THCA, by Briggs' definition, THCA is illegal.
Gotcha.
and it is being sold and taxed, and the state is profiting off the sales of it.
Right.
And so it being illegal by federal law is what he's trying to fix. But what's the downside of us not being in compliance? That's the question this is why I suck at interviews, is because I don't think of these things in real time. But I wouldn't have thought about it had we not had the conversation leading up to this. You know what I'm saying? And I did already send him a follow-up email with a bunch of questions, but they were much more practical questions than philosophical questions on when this law passes, because I think it will. What do I have to do to keep being able to sell anything? How can I sell stuff moving forward? It was literally I'm just going to go ahead and get a head start on being compliant with whatever this is.
Right.
And try to,
if you would like me to be a successful, business owner in your district,
it's look, man, I don't want to go back to work. I really like not having a day job. It's awesome.
I'm begging for favors. I'm just like, I
want to stay in business. I don't want
a helicopter view of this. Yeah. Where's this going to land? Where should I be so this doesn't hit me in the fucking head?
Yeah. How do I need to position this thing? Or is it just start buying by the pound and selling fucking crates of it? I was joking with Max about it the other day. I was like, we need to get more containers. We need to get more storage. Not for us, but to sell. Yeah. I want to get a 5-gallon, what is that? What do they call them? Stash? Well, a 5-gallon stash kit.
Yeah, that's stuff that preppers use to bury in the woods or whatever.
Yeah, except specifically for weed, so I can sell people 7 pounds, and they can have a stash of 7 pounds in a 5-gallon drum that's going to stay good and fresh.
Yeah. Just airtight container. I didn't know there's a special name for that.
Stash kit, stash something or other. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, there's the small ones they call it a little stash jar, just because it's a jar you put your stash in. But
so say it. But we want.
I think at that level, it's the stash. That's borderline hoard. That's your hoard.
Something that's airtight, smell proof that you can put in the deep back darks of your closet that dogs won't get into.
I think just even over time, any kind of this is what they tell people all the time, just with your cooking herbs. So most of those cooking herbs, even in a quote unquote sealed container, that you're losing your flavor after 9 months to a year on some of those.
It drops exponentially over time. I did see a video of a lady asking a retired FBI agent, it's can those dogs smell edibles? And he was like, yes. And she kind of gave it confused. And it was actually really neat. He was a really smart explanation. He's like, the best way to think about a dog's nose is, we always call it the stew method. And I was like, what? And he goes, so you think about it, you walk in the house and somebody's been cooking a stew, you smell a stew. Your dog walks in the house, that dog smells potatoes, salt, carrots, gravy, garlic, beef. And it knows each of those as individual smells that combine for the one smell you think of as stew. And it's so it doesn't matter what form, what place, what combination of, you're not going to cover up to a dog's nose the smell of weed just because it's in a grape gummy. Because the dog's going to smell grape, and it's going to smell pectin, and it's going to smell weed.
All right.
It's just that's how dogs' noses work. And I was like, that's a really good explanation.
Did we talk about? I think I saw a story not long ago about some police dogs that they were having to retire because I think that state then went legal. So then these drug dogs that had been, trained for years on detecting.
Poor dogs are just alerting constantly.
Right.
They're retired, and their new owners trying to just take them on a walk, and they're just like.
I think it was some people that got busted maybe for a different drug, and I guess there was some kind of plausible deniability that dog, may or may have smelled weed or whatever.
It was alerting on weed, which is legal.
Right.
And that was the probable cause that then found the...
Right.
But that dog wasn't trained to smell...
Right. But I think it's more so just, the police don't want to have to go through that extra effort of once a police dog, alerts, you've got to get a hold of a judge, get a warrant if you're going to try to do any kind of search right then outside of, immediate probable cause. That's where it would kind of depend. Sometimes they've just got to tow it back to the tow yard, and they get the warrant to tow it at the tow yard, or to inventory it at the tow yard.
I don't think
it depends on the situation.
I don't think that's procedurally true. I think if I think that a dog alerting will fit for a car will fit that probable cause threshold that they can search that car immediately. They don't need a warrant for that. because that falls under that like movable scene, the sanctity of the scene thing. By moving the scene, you have potential to change it, and so it's a then and there if the dog alerts. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I think I've seen.
Like
I don't know if
somewhere.
it maybe differs from state to state. Because I want to say I've seen some situations where, or maybe it was times where a dog wasn't available, but the police officer had probable cause, but couldn't search right then and there. It was like, all right, we're gonna go ahead and arrest you for DUI or whatever it was. It wasn't like a false charge, but the car then, I think once it's in police possession, if it gets towed back to the police yard or whatever, I think that's where they have to inventory it just for anything coming into their possession. They have to inventory what's there, just so.
Seems like a sneaky way to search a car, but I get it.
It can cut both ways.
It's a roundabout. Yeah, I get
it. It's meant to protect the person, and that they can't say something was stolen out of the car, or
right.
Something was stolen out of the car.
But if I think I think you have drugs in your car, but I don't have the right to look in there specifically, so I'm going to impound the car and detain you because that will then key off the need to.
They couldn't impound it under just suspicion. I mean, they would have to.
I'm just saying, but like last time I got a ticket,
right,
was for a license plate light being out, and he flat told me I wanted to get you for speeding, but I didn't get you on the clock, and so I started following you, and by the time I caught up to you, you weren't speeding anymore, and so I couldn't pace you. But then I noticed your license plate was out. So now I pulled you over, and he's doing that whole thing that cops do where they're not looking at you at all. They're just looking in the back seat and in the passenger seat and looking around for anything else.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a good enough excuse for him to get in the car, and he was pissed that he couldn't get me on the speeding ticket, so he wrote me a license plate light. Oh, and I gave him the wrong registration.
Oh, was that time that happened?
Yeah. Oh, anyway, yeah.
Everybody got pulled over long ago. I think he got pulled over because his registration was expired by a month. But the cop was just telling him, like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, hey, your tags are expired by like a month. He's like, I just want to make sure you knew. It's like, all right, have a good day.
Nice.
And that's what I said. I was like, that's what I wish like more people hear, because I think that's what happens more often than not. Like, that's just not what you hear. The stories that people get online and get pissed off about, or
right. As we often say, it's the negative stories are the ones you tell.
Right.
The positive stories you might tell once, but the negative story you'll tell 1,000 times.
Yeah. I've only ever had like maybe one or two bad encounters with a police officer, times of getting pulled over. Like, more often than not, they've been super cool with me, because I've always been cool with them.
Yeah. I mean, okay, on the conversation of police, the wrongful death suit by Anthony Thompson Jr.'s mom and brother or cousin or something. I can't remember who anyway, the wrongful death suit against KPD and the particular officers involved and whatnot. I don't know exactly what the phrasing legally is, but essentially the judge said the shooting was justified, but there may be grounds to continue the lawsuit under the officers not putting any effort into
rendering aid. Yeah,
rendering
saw a
aid
little bit about that.
it, which I didn't know. In the story on it, I was reading, as like one of the officers was literally washing his hands of his blood instead of helping him. Now, the autopsy says it wouldn't have mattered, but the cops didn't know that at the time.
Right.
Because, like, it's so bad. Like, I felt really terrible because my first thought was, I was like, that was a good shot. Like, that's the shot you want to take on a deer. Both lungs and the heart. That's how you put a deer down quickly. I was like, that sucks. That's my first thought, but that's where my brain goes.
Yeah.
But, I wish the best to that family, and that they can. I still have issues with that whole thing. I do agree with some arguments I've had with some people, in that that other kid's lucky he didn't get shot too. But I don't know. It just seems crazy to me that 4 cops can't physically restrain one teenager in a bathroom stall with or without a gun.
No, I mean, it was. I remember studying the video. I don't know if the stall door was closed at any point.
I mean, it all happened after they had their hands on him. That's the thing that I take issue with. They had their hands on him,
right,
and they were dragging him out of the stall. And in that process, he reached into his hoodie pouch. Actually, I don't even know if he reached into. I can't remember from the video. That's when the gun came out of his hoodie pouch, and I don't recall.
I mean, I've tried to grab a hold of it, sometimes by myself, sometimes with one or two other people, but tried to grab a hold of a teenager with adrenaline pumping through their system, and they're fucking strong.
I'm not saying they're not,
right?
But I would hope that 4 officers are stronger.
I mean, you have a grasp of hands trying to grab different hands. I don't know.
I know. It's just a tough one all over. If we're going to be fair about it, like my skepticism overrides reality, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Your optimism overrides my skepticism. Whatever, it's fine. Like I just think it sucks. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. It sucks. It sucks all over.
I hope there's no malice intent, on any party side.
One of those guys,
in any kind of situation like that.
One of the guys I actually know personally at this point. I've got to meet him a couple times.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know that I could walk around regardless. Like, I mean, whether justified or not, like, I don't know if I could walk around. I don't know if I could still do the job. I don't know if I could do the job, period. Let me be honest to any officer who's ever listened to the show. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I could do the job, period. But I don't know. I certainly don't think I could I don't think I could continue to do the job after that.
Yeah, a lot of them can't. And I've tried to look for the statistic again, but I've seen it pointed out, and I want to say it's at least a quarter or half of all police officers, will have, a 10, 15, 20-year career and never have to discharge their firearm outside of training. So, I mean, it's not an uncommon thing that, police officers, aren't having to use their weapon at all. We've talked about the guy a couple times, Malcolm Gladwell. He had another new book that came out recently. It was called The Tipping Point.
You mean Tim Burton?
No, Malcolm Gladwell.
He looks like Tim Burton to me.
He does kind of look like Tim Burton a little bit. They've got that hair.
Yep.
That crazy hair.
That skeleton face, like that skeleton. Yeah, they look like Jack Skellington with crazy hair.
No, Malcolm's like a marathon runner. He's a big runner. So, I mean, he's
whatever. He looks like a stick.
Built to run. He is extremely skinny.
He is skin over bone. There is no muscle tissue in there. It's just anyway.
But he had a really interesting book he did. I think it was in the early '90s. That had to do with the whole kind of around the time of stop and frisk, and it was trying to explore, what was the cause of crime going down? Was it because of stop and frisk, et cetera? And a bunch of police officers and or police agencies kind of took that as a sign that this stuff was working. And he's written a new book and kind of had gone back and reevaluated and kind of found out he had it completely wrong. And he kind of, I think in the book, in a couple of interviews I've seen talking about it, kind of focuses more on New York City, and that yes, stop and frisk I think did lower some crime statistics, but even after they ended it, and apparently even the judge that overrode the stop and frisk law and put it back into place, even in their decision, said that yes, this is illegal, but I think this may lead to, or they thought that it would lead to crime going back up, and the exact opposite fell. This was in crime statistics that were already at a near historic low for New York City.
Right,
around that time, it was safer than Paris, and most people would balk at New York City being safer than Paris or whatever.
Right. And so, what do they account for the drop in?
They're not 100% sure, but even after they stop and frisk, they still saw crime statistics go down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm was it broken windows policing?
Yeah, I was about to say that was kind of what they called it. They called it kind of broken windows, and I guess it was kind of this idea of, I guess if they fix up the neighborhood,
yeah,
and there is that point too, that if the neighborhood starts looking a bit nicer,
right, and then it's the question of does the element take pride in the neighborhood and stay, or do they not like the fact that it's getting nicer and they go somewhere else? Either way, the neighborhood's better off, but that's the other question that goes up with that kind of thing.
I think some of it was just kind of pushing back against expectations.
I mean, I will argue that most of the crime that we talk about, the violent crime, and theft and stuff like that, it's an economics. It's just economics. It's always been economics.
I mean, they've been saying the past couple of years that violent crimes have been slowly going down and down. But what you're seeing, kind of like you said, are kind of like a rise of like kind of petty thefts. I mean, to the point where you have like organized theft rings that some stores are. You ever heard about any of this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were looking at me kind of cross-eyed, like, wait, what?
No, I've got some smudge on my glasses that won't go away, and I'm looking at my glasses cross-eyed.
Yeah, because it's just, any kind of like organized crime, if there's major profitability in it, and you can send 15 people into a major retailer and get a whole bunch of disposable razors that sell on the black market for a shit ton of money, and it's such a small thing.
Yeah, to the point where like. There's like, especially in some of the major cities in California or whatever, like there's like whole convenience stores as we know them that are like the baby formula in the grocery store right now.
Yeah.
Like the little plexiglass, whatever.
Yeah, everything's behind the glass.
Yeah. An employee has to come over and open it for you, or they have to take it up to the register for you, and then when you check out, they'll add it to your stuff and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And which I hate, not because I like... not so much that I hate, like, I think theft sucks and stuff in general, but like, I hate that I feel like that's just for major retailers, that's just a little poke to just keep going online and deliver. Don't do in-store shopping. They can't steal from you if you don't have a store for them to come and steal from.
Yeah. How much are you affected if you had someone do a purchase with like a stolen credit card? To where I guess, your business got paid, but if that card gets reported stolen.
If it gets charged back, it's a pain in the ass process. You could make the argument, but at the end of the day, usually
does the business lose out on that money?
Well, it depends what it is. It depends what the credit card company deal is. A lot of times, the credit card companies will eat it. Yeah. Like they'll give their card carrier their money back, but they won't take it back from the retailer.
Okay.
There is a whole process in it. Like we had some people like do try to request a chargeback on us, and it's like, well, why? And they're like, well, they said that they didn't do that, and it's like, well, I have the receipt, and I have their tip, and I have their signature. How do they get to say they didn't make that purchase?
Right? Are they saying that? Right?
Are they saying that they weren't here at all, or whatever? And it's like, stolen card's not my problem. That's your guys' problem. Like, I don't have it's not my responsibility.
If this is a quote unquote legitimate, purchase they're disputing, that's a different scenario versus stolen, etc.
Right. I didn't run their card for somebody else's tab.
Right.
I ran their card for their tab. And to the point where we actually pulled up video footage of them signing their sheet and sent a screenshot of them writing on the piece of paper. Now, it's not clear enough to see what they write or anything like that, but it's like, what do you want us to do here?
Right. That could very well be that assumption of like Amazon of it's so easy to make a return if I just, if I just dispute it, that, big enough company is just going to be like, okay, fine, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes, yeah. And they do. And it depends on a lot of factors, but sometimes they do. And sometimes those it's just people scamming.
Well, that's what more retailers have started doing. I think Target started doing it years ago, where they'll basically like keep track of how many like returns you do in a year. And it gets to the point where like they won't let you do returns anymore.
Yeah, a lot of
exchanges. Yeah, but I mean straight up returns.
Like Amazon won't let you do some of the returns they used to do, because a lot of people would buy like multiples of a clothing item in different sizes because they weren't sure how that brand did the sizing. And so because they won't do free returns for them anymore, you got to pay for the shipping or something like that now.
Right.
Which I think's, I don't know.
And it's expensive. It's cheap for them because they're putting out packages in bulk. But if you're trying to put it back in that always oversized box, it's always like a tiny little thing in a giant box.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. It's like, to me, that's like, okay, Amazon, well, if you don't want to have that problem, then you need to open a brick and mortar and sell your shit so that I can go in there and try it on.
I mean, they don't do the returns anyway. I'm sure you've seen some of like the date lines of all the Amazon returns where, there's websites you can buy like, complete pallets full of Amazon returns.
Yeah, they just take them and they put them in a warehouse somewhere and they do that kind of shit, yeah.
No, they just sell it off to a third party, and then that third party sells it off, however.
Right. They don't restock with it, no.
Right.
I agree. I'm just saying, though, like if that's an issue that they don't want to deal with, then... Well, inversely, like if that's something that you want to do as a consumer and don't want to pay for that return shipping, then go to the fucking Belk and buy the same goddamn T-shirt.
Right. You paid for the convenience.
Right. And you don't get both. But that's what we've become to expect us consumers. Like, I mean, I love to shit on Amazon and hate on them, but I buy shit off there all the time.
Right.
More because of selection than I do because of anything else.
I mean, I empathize with that. I was in a company there. People bought shirts online, and you will see different sizes between manufacturers. I've run into that issue myself of buying, a certain size from one brand and it being a totally different size in a different brand. But of people buying, a shirt and being like, oh, well, I bought a medium on this, but I bought a medium in that one, and these are two totally different sizes. But to where our policy was, you had to, I think we had free shipping, or they paid for shipping, whatever. But they would have to pay to ship it back to us.
Right.
We would send their exchange or whatever for free back to them, but if they wanted to exchange or return something, they had to pay to ship it back to us.
Yeah. Again, I mean, that's on you as the consumer. As far as I shit.
It's like, we can't come pick it up from you.
But I mean, I think
we're happy to give you your money back, but we have to have our product back.
I think too, though, for like Amazon or somebody like that, that's something that maybe they didn't think of when they had their free return policy, because they thought that was a cool thing to say.
Well, I think at the time they were making so much money that, and then more often than not, people are lazy and they'll be like, "Yeah, I'll return that," and then 30 days goes by and they're like, "Never mind, I guess I'm keeping it."
Well, I think also, I mean, they're not making all that money today either. They're making plenty of money now too. It's not like they're making that much less. Although, like, I'm like, it's been interesting. Like, now that Easttown warehouse is open, there's a certain significant number of items. I'd be curious if there's a way to search it by location. But there is stuff that I could order at 9 a.m. and have delivered by the end of business today.
Same.
I don't know exactly what it is because they don't show that. You don't know that.
Right.
I would think that would be a feature, though. Like, get it today, and then a list
with some things. They've got a kind of quote unquote live inventory, but I think to an extent, and the amount of warehouses that they have, it's kind of hard to guarantee.
Well, it's just what's in this warehouse. That's what I'm saying. Like, but they when you're shopping and your shipping address is X.
Right, but I would think they probably got some of the same stuff in 20 different warehouses.
Yeah, but they know that they have it in this warehouse. If your shop, because I would assume that the system is looking, where's it shipping to? We have it here.
I guess my thought is they're getting so many simultaneous orders that it's hard for them to kind of been like, yeah, there's 500 in your area right now, and 10 seconds later, right?
There's zero.
So they don't want to guarantee you that the 2 minutes that it takes you to go through that checkout process, and you're like, wait, 2 minutes ago you told me I could have it in 3 hours.
Now you're telling me it's going to take me 3 days.
Like, yeah, it took you too long to fill it. That you should have had FastPass enabled.
The Buy It Now feature,
right?
Oh yes, indeed. All right,
we can have our Gold Prime.
There's always another level of memberships. Damn it. Yeah, I suck at my buttons. I really need to mark my buttons.
Let me see if I can't find that one that I totally forgot about last week.
I got nothing. My brain is so empty. I am struggling so hard. I was falling asleep before you got here.
Well, I had a complete brain fart earlier. I was like, well, what was I just saying? And it came in, I was like, oh, yeah, I was trying to say this.
Yeah,
luckily, like halfway through a thought, and was like, no.
Yeah, it's been I don't know. Hopefully things can settle down. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like the state legislature right now is going to have me super stressed until it doesn't. And either it's going to be a different level of stress because everything passes and I've got to figure out how to continue to exist in a business, or if I'm going to shut doors, or if I'm going to limit stores, or how many people I'm going to have to lay off, or everything's going to be okay and I'm going to keep moving on and not have to go to selling my body on the street corner. I'd be a good male whore. You know it. No, I wouldn't. I'd suck at it. I'd cry. Be all emotional. But you don't love me.
Where the hell is that story?
I can't ramble on.
Pause it for a second. Sorry.
I can't continue to ramble on about being a prostitute
any
longer.
Pause it. I'm sorry. Sorry, I really want to find this one story. It was hilarious.
Well, find a different one, and I'll ramble on about that, and then we can see if we can find it while I'm rambling on about that.
Okay. Let's see here.
So what you just heard, everybody, was me building edit points in that I'm too lazy to actually go back and do.
Thieves nab pricey bulldog from a Colorado pet store after faking a seizure. It's not that funny. It's just stupid.
Why would you steal a dog? Like, is there that much money in stealing dogs?
I guess it was a pricing. It was probably like a prized. I mean,
yeah, but
some of like pure breeds are like $1,500, $2,000. You find somebody that I realized was a thing. I don't know if you heard about it in economic school, but I guess like the theory of the greater fool.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Doge. That's what like all these meme coins and shit are.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that theory or whatever. I was like, I already knew that was a thing, but I didn't realize it was an actual like economic, it's a standardized economic term for it.
Yeah, it's the God. There's the guy that is con artist back in forever ago that sold a bridge, like literally sold a bridge. Said he owned the bridge. Like did a whole big con on saying he owned some bridge. It was like I want to say it was like Amsterdam or something weird like that. Maybe it was London that he owned the bridge and he sold it to somebody. And so the guy that bought it went and tried to put gates up, and the government was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I bought the bridge. I want to close it down for it's a toll bridge now." And like, "You can't buy this bridge. We own it. It's property of the city." And he's like, "But I got all this paperwork and stuff right here." Yeah. As long as somebody else is dumb enough to buy it for more than you paid for it, it's a win. Anyway, bulldogs, stolen bulldogs. I would just think with a bulldog, like if the dog is pricey, there's paperwork. And so whoever buys the dog is...
I don't think the paperwork shows ownership. I think generally like, the paperwork is just like bloodline guarantee.
Right. But whoever buys that paperwork is going to register it because that's what you do with purebred dogs, is you register it with the AKC or whatever. Because you're registered... Because a lot of times when they're purebred dogs, one of the things that people buy them for is to breed them themselves. And so if you want to breed it or do anything that's a monetary gain from the dog you're buying, you need to register it. And once you take that paperwork in to register it, they'd be like, "Oh, this dog was stolen from the pet store." Because the last owner of the registration paperwork reported this one stolen.
Yeah, I don't know how that
It's not any different than like...
So you have like AKC registry, but I would think that'd be more for like...
No, it's like car,
competitions.
It would be like a car and stuff too. Like when it gets to a certain level of whatever, there's documentation of the transaction, and when you buy it in black market, you don't have that documentation.
Right.
But if you want to do anything with it, you're going to have the documentation. So either you're going to be forging documentation, or you're going to be admitting to theft.
It's just as easily sold on the black market.
No, I agree with the original sale of it, but again, if you're going to pay $5,000 for a dog or whatever ridiculous price for a dog, guess that you're at least going to breed it once.
Right, but I mean, that greater sucker theory, I mean, it's easy to invite people over to the house, show them that piece of paper that proves bloodline, and you find the right people that don't ask like, "Oh, can you show me ownership papers?" Well, I mean, how many people are going to show up to a breeder's house?
Right, you're going to give me
hold on, can you prove that you actually own this dog?
You're going to give me a super well-bred puppy for less than what I would have to go to a regular place to buy it. I'm not going to ask any questions about that. I don't care that you don't have it fully registered. I might get stuck when I try to register it, but it's a...
Well, you don't be stupid and make it, an obviously like crazy discount.
No,
make it look like you're knocking $100 off. I mean, these people thrive in the black market by knowing how to do this wheeling and dealing.
I'm not saying it's not possible or logical or even likely that it happens. I'm just thinking that there's some safeguards.
Scammers going to scam.
Scammers going to scam. You ain't wrong. Did you find it?
Not that particular one.
God damn it, man.
But an interesting one of scammers. We've got thieves used a stolen card to buy a $500,000 lottery ticket. The victim wants to share the winnings. Let's see here.
That is very interesting.
I guess this is out of
I wouldn't share though.
France.
I'd be like, those are my winnings.
Let's see here. So thieves used the stolen credit card to buy a French lottery ticket worth about €500,000. But they vanished before cashing in, and now they're among France's most famous fugitives. The man whose card was stolen and identified in police documents is offering to split the cash with the lucky winners. He wants his wallet back, too.
That's funny.
But the thief, meanwhile, faced the risk of arrest. As of Saturday, the lottery operator said that no one had submitted the ticket to cash out.
Well, but they can't, because when it gets to that level, there's documentation on it, and at this point, they're going to know that's stolen. So they can't.
It's kind of a weird thing. It's not a stolen lottery ticket, but it was the money used to purchase that ticket.
But how do they know that that was the card used to purchase the ticket?
I'm assuming the guy's already tracked it back, and it's like, hey, it was used to buy at this shop or whatever. At least an amount that they were probably able to figure, like, oh, well, that was a $10 lottery ticket or whatever.
Right, but the lottery tickets have the serial numbers on them, and so the lottery commission knows that this ticket was the one in question.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm assuming there's
That's what
only
I'm saying.
like one winning number
So
or whatever.
you can't cash the ticket in without admitting to the stolen credit card part of it.
Right.
So the individual whose card was stolen, I don't think they can deny pressing charges.
Let's see here.
Because at this point, or at some point, it would be defrauding the lottery commission too, on the theft part, on the thieves part.
Let's see. The guy earlier this month discovered earlier this month that his backpack had been stolen from his car, including bank cards and other documents. And he asked his bank to block the card and learned it had already been used in a local shop. At the shop, a vendor told him 2 apparent homeless men had used one of his cards to buy the winning scratch-off lottery ticket. They were so happy that they forgot their cigarettes and their belongings and walked out like crazy people, said, I guess, the shop owner. Let's see.
Yeah,
The guy filed a police complaint about the theft, but is ready to withdraw it if the thieves come forward so that they can share the money. So I guess, I mean,
right.
Just like in ours, it's up to us if the victim wants to press charges against them. And he's like, hey, just give me my wallet back and I'll fucking split it with you.
Yeah, come back, meet me here.
I'm happy to take $250,000.
Right, come back, meet me here, give me the ticket and all my stuff back,
right?
And I'll give you 250,000 francs. I know they're not francs anymore. I'm just kidding.
Euros.
I feel like I would, if I were the thief in this situation, I would have shredded that ticket and just moved on. Because even with the promise of dropping charges, I feel like the state might still bring some crime on me for some fraud issue or something like that. One more? Or are you all set? You got it? One more? Come on.
Damn, I'm trying to find that.
Bring me the one. What is it about?
Found it.
All right, here we go. Hold on. This needs a full one more.
Why people are naming bugs, rats, and cats after their exes this Valentine's Day. Feeling like dissing instead of kissing your former lover this Valentine's Day? Think your ex is more like a rat than a prince? Do you believe your former paramour should never procreate? Animal shelters and zoos across the country are encouraging little cathartic avenues for revenge this holiday and raising money for a cause, with a slew of darkly funny fundraisers for those missed by Cupid's arrow. Options include naming a feral cat after your old flame before it's neutered, or giving rodents or cockroaches your love bug's name before feeding them to bigger animals. Let's see, the Minnesota Zoo.
The puns, I love it.
The Minnesota Zoo's campaign to name a bug after either a friend or foe has attracted donors from across the world.
I ain't mad at that. That's fun.
Yeah, it's a good fun cause.
I mean, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the red nose thing. I think it's for some kind of cancer.
Yeah, childhood. It's children's.
Might be childhood cancer.
Yeah.
I always thought it's kind of like a weird, funny thing that it's kind of brought awareness to, and it's just kind of like a silly thing. It's like, yeah, everybody just bought little clown noses.
Right, and that costs like $10 to make, and they sell them for like $5, and
right. But it's all bringing cancer awareness, but also raising money for the charities.
Right. I'm at those. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited about. I really, 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 really hope that X Hunger is ready to launch their initiative in time, because I really want to be part of that. I really think it's a cool thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do for the situation. I said I couldn't say anymore, so I'm not going to say anymore. But I want to say so much more because it's so cool. But yeah, Holloroo's coming together. I'm excited about that. Maybe I just need to go like full Xanax on the state law part. Just wait until I got to deal with it, because at this point there's no control left.
Can't get to the point where you're kind of running yourself ragged.
Well, I mean, like
trying to change something that you don't have as much control over.
I've got my. I think I've got Becky on my side. I think Becky. I hope. I don't know. I need to talk to her a little bit more about it. There's no moving Briggs off of it. Elaine Davis is a worthless piece of shit, so I'm not going to touch her on it anyway. I could try. They've just I've got an email back from her assistant that's denying my interview request. And I've assumed that will continue, and I'll keep asking. I'll get her eventually out of annoyance because I'm stubborn. But by the time I get her, it's going to be worthless for anything of value this session.
I mean, see if she'll even respond to just like a list of like 5 questions.
But make the first conversation happen. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'll keep working on what I work on. But anyway, yeah, sponsors, people. I need money so I don't have to worry about my day job. So, it's just like $5,000 an episode. Nothing crazy. We're not going to do more episodes a week just because I'm charging per episode. Do the same show, same way. Unless you're like,
you get no real benefit for this.
I mean, I'll tell you. I'll tell everybody about whatever it is you want me to tell them about. Larson, I'm looking at you. Larson J is gonna sponsor the show, and I'll say nice things about him as he runs for mayor. Don't reference this episode if he does sponsor me. Anyway, that's the show, everybody. I'll sell my soul not to go back to a day job. Almost agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. All your favorite podcast providers, all those places. Friend, like, follow, share, tweet, X, Truth. We're not on Truth Social. I'm just kidding. But maybe we should be. Anyway, all your favorite podcast providers. Like, share, friend, follow, tweet, text it to your friends. Do whatever you can do to spread the word. We're going to keep doing shows. Do take the time to go check out that really terrible tech issue show I had with Mr. Briggs earlier. It's hard to listen to because of the tech problems, but it's interesting nonetheless. Shoot me emails. Let me know. We'll keep doing what we're doing, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.